Hello. Who's here right now? You're all early. I saw Cosma's name, Cosma in green. Anno Maxi, and then welcome also Anine Rebsdorf. Anine said, so excited for this live. Well, you're going to have a treat today because this live is chunky with lots of useful information. Yeah. It's also a topic that I haven't actually done a live stream before on, even though I have talked about, I've talked about quoting forms before, but I haven't actually talked about this type of quoting. So it was actually difficult to name this live because I'm thinking like, it's not really quoting. It uses the quoting form, but we're going to be using a bunch of different uses for the quoting form that you probably didn't even think about. And it's all beginner level and intermediate level at the same time, if that makes sense. It's accessible to a beginner, but will really benefit intermediates who are already able to speak the language. Let's see who else is here. Welcome, welcome. See a few other names I recognize. Gummy Girl. Nightbot. Hey, Nightbot. It's good to always see you in here. Nightbot's very quiet. All they do is just, they just spam things like become a Patreon supporter, join the Discord channel. That's all they do, but I still appreciate them being in here. I don't know if they can understand me, if they're an intelligent type of bot. Am I on time? Yes, you are on time. Everyone here is on time. You're all early because we'll start the actual class at the top of the hour. But it's good you're here because we have a bunch of announcements to go over today. Apprentice Wizard. Shout out to Nightbot. Yeah, Nightbot's been a pretty solid member since the very beginning, I'd say. My most trusted bot is Nightbot. Pretty much all it can do is just post links when I tell it to. But isn't that the best type of bot? Just does exactly what you tell it to. Doesn't make stuff up. Doesn't say, oh, you're right. Haha, it's smart of you to have pointed that out. Very good. I will update my database. You seem to be correct. I apologize for misleading you. Like, you all know what I'm talking about with the AI stuff. Okay, I'll say this again right before we start, but I just want to remind you all of, I have a Patreon page. If you didn't know that, it is really the best way you could possibly support me outside of just throwing money to my Patreon page. sorry, to my PayPal. Patreon is the second best way because Patreon is how I can actually eat and pay my bills, because YouTube, not surprisingly, but education channels on YouTube don't really make that much money. But I appreciate my Patreon supporters for helping to keep the lights on here. So just wanted to give a shout out to all of you. If you're not already a member, check it out. There are some different levels of things you get. Most of the stuff you'll get in the very first tier, and it starts from $1, and you get like these worksheets and outlines for every single live stream I do. This one actually is 2 pages for the outline, and the worksheet also is an additional like 10 practice sentences that couldn't fit into the live stream. You'll also get the cheat sheets as well as the upcoming cheat sheets I'm working on right now. Secret. I'm doing some more cheat sheets. And you'll also get to vote on the next group or artist that I do Korean analysis for. You get a bunch of little stuff like in back, like exclusive clips as well from my podcast or videos sometimes, and some other, Patreon exclusive stuff. But yeah, check it out if you haven't already. The other thing I wanted to say is that next Sunday's live class may be an hour different because daylight savings time, again, starts from or ends from, I don't know. You know what I'm talking about. It's the thing where it switches, and it does that twice a year. Next Sunday is that day. So it's possible the live stream could be an hour earlier or an hour later for you, depending on, how does that work? How does time work? Anyway, keep that in mind. The starting time is always going to be the same for me. I always started in Los Angeles time or Pacific Standard Time, Pacific time at 2 p.m. on Sunday, but that may be an hour later or earlier for you from next week. So just keep an eye on that. I'll post it on the day of. I always make a little post saying, hey, I'll see you in a couple hours. I'll do that again for Sunday. So if you see that notification, it means that's when the live is going to start. But just keep that in mind. It does change next Sunday. Besides that, just check the chat really quick. Gummy Girl, you like the Stray Kids videos? Yes, we have another Stray Kids video coming up tomorrow. A very special episode about Han. If you don't know why it's special, then you don't know Han very well. But yeah, so that'll be up tomorrow morning. So, the other thing that you should all know today is actually, well, I guess technically it's yesterday in Korea because now it would be the next day. But it still is in outside of Korea. The first 3, 1, 2. So that would be like not a festival, celebration, kind of like that. So March 1st is a holiday in Korea known as 3일 절. So it's pronounced as 3일 절 due to sound change rules. So this is actually a double consonant when you pronounce it, but it's spelled as 3일 절, like that. This is March 1st, and it is Korea's basically Independence Day. Not really Independence Day. That would be a different day. The start of the Liberation Day. So it's like the start of the liberation movement in Korea from 1919, I believe. Something around there. Yeah, I think it was 1919. They announced like, hey, we're going to start our liberation movement because they were at that time, Japan was occupying Korea. So this was like kind of the start of the resistance against that, like the official designated day that they started. And it's been going on since then, 1919. So yeah, it's as well. If you see Koreans posting like, Korea flags and stuff like that, that's what they're doing for today, or I guess technically yesterday in Korea. So just be aware of what it is. Yes, Han. Han is tomorrow. That's the 5th episode out of the 8 members. Before we start the live stream, though, that's the announcements I wanted to make. If you have any questions before we get started, now is a good time. You've got about 19 minutes before the actual start of the lesson. That is really sour. Oh, that is like, it's watermelon lime. It's really sour. Okay. I don't know if I should have those anymore before the live streams. Like my throat hurts from drinking it. It's so sour. Before the lesson today, you want to know about how to conjugate plain form, I would say. If you don't, I will be doing a really quick overview at the beginning of the class, just so that you can kind of get up to speed. But if you've never seen it before, I think it's going to be a bit confusing. Now, if you can make quotes already, if you know how to say something like, I said it is, or they said they are not going, if you can make basic quotes already, then you would have already mastered this. And that's like the foundation for what we're going to do today. So again, I'll do a really quick overview of that again, like how to make basic quotes. But I am assuming that you've learned it before in some capacity. And, but yeah, if you already know this, then you'll be perfect for the rest of the stuff we're going to be doing today. It'll be a really quick review of basic quoting, but then we're going to quickly go over to the next usage of the quoting form, which is to say different things besides a quote. So normally quoting would be like, I said that, or they asked this, or he or she yelled something, or they spoke or talked about this, or something like that. But there's a lot more that you can do with that same form besides things coming out of your mouth. There are completely other verbs we can use. We're going to talk about 약속하다, like promising, 믿다, believing, 부르다, and we're also going to be talking about another dozen or so verbs, and there are a lot. But I'll introduce the whole concept. So anyway, it's based all on this plain form and basic quoting. Will this lesson help me because I'm a beginner? Yes, it is a beginner concept. I said it's also intermediate friendly though, because if you are an intermediate learner, you have definitely heard other uses of this before, but you might not know how to make it yourself. So that will simplify it, make it all make sense. But I'd say it's a beginner level topic because it doesn't require knowing any additional forms to get to this form. Once you learn basic quoting, which is definitely a beginner topic, you can go right over here and learn this part in the same level without having to like build on that, if that makes sense. So that's why it's a beginner topic. But yes, it'll definitely help you. Any beginner level topic is going to be immediately useful to you in Korean. Vini says, question, is there anything you recommend for beginners who want to watch videos in Korean and want to learn new vocab there? Yes, I would say focus on videos that are not too much above your level. So they call this comprehensible input, is like the technical word. Excuse me. I had like a cold like 3 weeks ago, and then I had like a cough for 2 weeks, and I still have like a weird sore throat from it. No, not sore throat, but like raspy voice, I guess, from it. I'm totally fine now, but my voice never completely recovered. So that's why you might hear me cough a bit. So yes, you want videos that's just a fancy technical word, but it just means anything that's not too high above your level, but something that's a little bit maybe above your level or at your level. So don't go watching like the news. That's like, in my opinion, the worst thing that you could possibly watch for practicing listening, not because it's useless, but because it's the least useful out of all the options. There are much more useful options that are right here. And then news is, it's not going to be very useful to you compared to others. So I would say something like, and not even kids shows. Those also might be kind of difficult depending on what show it is. Variety shows are the best for that. Talk shows are really good for that. Reality shows are fine. I know people watch, what was that one? There's some like dating reality show that was really popular. I can't remember what it was. I haven't seen it. I heard a bunch of people talk about it. Anything like that is fine. YouTube vlogs are great as well because of how easy they are to get. You don't need like a subscription or something to get them. You can just get them for free. Anything that's kind of close to your level or a little bit above, yeah, that's what I recommend. And then besides that, for learning new vocab, if you're doing listening practice, I would focus only on the words that you repeatedly hear. Like if you keep hearing someone say, 괜찮아, 괜찮을 것 같아, 괜찮아, 괜찮아. You hear this 괜찮다 verb a lot. Look up that word, try to find the original form if it's a verb, or try to find the original word by itself if it's a noun, and just focus on the ones that you recognize multiple times. Otherwise, you're going to be pausing and writing down every single word, which I mean, I did that, but it's not as fun, I would say. That's what I recommend. Just keep it simple. Yes, Singles Infernal. That's right. I knew it was something with like a volcano or something. I was thinking, is it like volcanoes and throw singles into volcanoes or something like that? I don't know what kind of show that would be. There are a lot of slow podcasts. Yes, I should have mentioned that. Thank you. Podcasts, there are like dozens. Nowadays, there didn't used to be any until a few years ago, but now there are dozens and dozens of active podcasts that do slow speaking in Korean. And they have some for like brand new beginners, and they have some for advanced learners, like all levels of podcasts for listening to Korean. I mean, I have a podcast as well. It's not all in Korean though, but any podcast is great. And the more, the merrier. I did a video like 2 years ago or 3 years ago. I think it was 2 years ago where I recommended some podcasts for language learners. And most of those are still active. Some of them are already, they already stopped, which I'm not surprised because YouTube channels are like that. People will run a YouTube channel for a few years and then just suddenly stop it. But most of them, though, are still active. You can check that list as well. But really, any Korean listening podcasts that you enjoy is fine. Those are really good. And they'll put subtitles on. Sometimes that you can download a transcript of them as well. Yeah. I tried watching toddler cartoons. Yeah, those can be difficult, but it depends. Some of them are simpler than others. 모태솔로지만 연애는 하고 싶어. Oh, really? I was yelling at my screen the entire time. Okay, yeah, that sounds... that's the reason why I don't watch any of those romance variety shows. Because I just can't stand it. Like, you're ridiculously good looking, and yet you're having a hard time finding a date. You got to have a terrible personality, man. I just can't stand that type of stuff. Like, why are you on this TV show to find a date? Like, you are clearly good enough looking to not have to use that to the show. So why? And then do you really want to be dating someone that you met out of a tiny pool of other people in the same situation as you? I tried watching a couple episodes of Hello Tadu. Yeah, again, that's a kid's show. It might not be appropriate for your level. So a lot of people mistakenly think children's books are good because you should be learning like a child. That's one of the biggest myths in language learning is learning like a child, because it sounds so tempting. It sounds so true on the surface. But if you think about it, the more you think about it, the less it makes sense and the less practical it is. So with that goes like, oh, you got to use kids shows. You got to read kids books. No, those are made for native Korean kids. They're not made for language learners. You as an adult, or at least as a teenager, can learn much more efficiently than a child. Although a child will end up learning better because they have way longer exposure and they started way early. But if you can't do that, when you're actually studying something, you can learn much more efficiently than a kid, right? Like if you're, give an IKEA instruction manual to a 5-year-old and give it to a 15-year-old and see who builds it first. Disregarding the fact that it's difficult to use the tools. Just say they're power tools. Yeah. What's today's topic meaning? We'll talk about that. It's going to be using quoting form for additional purposes. I watched a podcast of Korean with Miss Vicky with you. Oh, yeah. When did we do that? I think that must have been a long time ago. Yeah, that would have been like 2021 or something like that. I have a couple of vlog channels I like in Korean and can understand a bit. Obsessed with skater cha. Oh, really? Skater videos? Okay. Also, one thing is that if you find a YouTuber that you really like, that does something that you're interested in, that you actually enjoy their videos, but you feel they're too complicated, they speak too fast, or they're using dialect, or they're slurring their words, or whatever, I would actually recommend to keep using it if you really enjoy a resource, with the exception of something like that's still going to be crazy level, like the news. If it's anything with a regular person talking, I would say power through it because you will get used to them. And I mean, it happens with if you are in a relationship with a different person and they speak differently or you can't understand them. when you spend enough time around them, you kind of adjust, you get used to how they're talking, and you can understand them. Even when you miss some of the words, you can still understand them because you're just so used to hearing them. The same will happen with YouTubers or anyone that you enjoy listening to. So I would say just keep going with it if there's someone that you really like hearing how they speak specifically. I hadn't done any sort of gaming videos. Like I didn't used to watch any gaming videos before COVID. During COVID, I was like, I want to find some Korean content, and a friend recommended, or I just found it, a Korean gamer, and I started watching it. I'm like, okay, I understood the Korean he's using, but I didn't understand all of these like little Korean gaming terms. Like they'll have words, for like defense points or like, luring monsters or like your character selection. Like they'd have all these little keywords and stuff that you can hear them and you kind of understand them in context, but they're a little bit difficult because you never heard those words before. And I remember I'm like watching his videos really closely for like the first few weeks. I'm like, I can barely understand. I can understand it because it's Korean. It's not like crazy level, but all these words I didn't know. And you just keep watching and watching and watching and watching. Eventually, after several months, I would have like him in one ear, listening to him while I'm like writing. And I could still understand him without even like thinking about it because you just get used to it. And then it got to the point where I got so used to his voice after watching I'm not exaggerating. It was like 2,000 videos. I watched so many videos of his during COVID. And it got to the point where I was so comfortable with hearing him that I had to stop and unsubscribe because he was fun. He was entertaining, but I was learning nothing anymore. It was not Korean practice anymore for me because of how used to his voice I was. Anyway, I'd still recommend him. He's great. His name is Sutak, like rooster. Awesome YouTuber. But at that time I was trying to find listening practice, and he transcended from listening practice into like a family member as far as how used to hearing him I was. So that's why I transferred to some other people. But yeah, really, really fun, entertaining, easy to understand Korean gaming YouTuber. I have a few other recommendations if you want, but yeah. Okay, we'll get started with the class in just 5 minutes. Let's see if there's anything else going on in the chat. Do you know the TV show Running Man? Yes, I do. Is it good for beginners? Yes, I would say that's very good for beginners. I personally don't like the show because I personally don't like scripted TV. Like it's kind of scripted, even though it's not scripted. It's done in a non-scripted way, but it's still produced. Maybe that's a word to use besides scripted. It's produced. I'm not a big fan of produced reality content in general. I would prefer a vlog instead of watching a produced show like that. But for people who like it, I've heard a lot of good things. It's very entertaining. They speak clearly. They have built-in subtitles. They do fun situations. You hear really natural Korean, and you get to see actual Korean behavior. It's not like they're not going to have like actors come on and pretend to do stuff. So yeah, I would recommend it as well. And there's so much of it, which is good. You don't have to like watch. It's not like you watch like 12 episodes and the season's over and it's done and you can't get any more practice. There are like hundreds of episodes of that show, right? Ingus, thank you. It's a nice comment, Ingus. I've been watching Korean variety shows and I find them to be quite helpful because their subtitles are often big, bold, and colorful. Yeah, and the subtitles also add to the Korean that they're saying. Sometimes they might say something really simple and then the subtitles will have something like interesting in them. Like it'll have like like an idiom related to the situation, or they'll have like a comment about what's going on. So you get more, I think, with the subtitles than just, closed captions would be. So yeah, I would highly recommend Running Man despite not liking it myself. I'd say it's an excellent show for Korean practice. Oh, and if you're just coming in here right now and you missed my explanation today, technically in Korea, March 1st, which was yesterday now, was 삼일절. 삼일절, pronounced as 절, which is the start of Korea's liberation movement when Korea was being occupied by Japan in 1919. They're like, hey, let's start liberating ourselves, and this day marks the start of our liberation, and they made it into a national holiday. And yeah, every year it's mostly just about thinking of the founding of Korea as it is today. So it's like the anniversary of the start of the intention to found Korea. But anyway, yeah, Liberation Day today. Or, yeah, start of the liberation movement, I guess. Because there is a separate day for actual Liberation Day. But see what else is in the chat. We'll get started in just 2 minutes. Is it better for women to focus on how women speak and vice versa? Yes. Yeah. Now I am accepting of anyone, and if you, I don't mean that as like a, I don't even know what I mean by that. You can talk however you want, is what I'm trying to say. If you want to speak like a certain way or a certain gender, do it. Like, don't let the culture expectations change who you deep down are. I guess I'll say that. But for 95% of people, 90% of people, I don't know, whatever, most people want to sound like they do in their native language. They want to sound the same as they normally do. So you would speak the way you try to copy, not just saying like, if you're a guy, follow a guy, because every guy can have a different voice tone, right? You can have guys that have like really deep voices or really high voices, and you might not always want that. Follow people who you actually want to sound like, regardless of the gender. So if I was following like an older 60-year-old man and I was doing listening to lots of his speaking for my listening practice, I would put down a lot of money that I'm going to end up sounding like that. And it's funny, I sometimes meet people who were raised by their Korean grandparents, like maybe they're half Korean or they're full Korean but born outside of Korea. And as soon as, like, within 10 seconds of talking with them, you can hear who they learned their Korean from. And sometimes they'll sound like an older, like a 60-year-old ajoshi or something. Depending on the voice, like the intonation they have or something like that. I can't do that very well because, you know, I don't do much of that for my listening practice, but you can pick it up right away when someone talks like that. So find people that kind of match your age, kind of match how you want to sound. If you do lots and lots and lots of listening, if you're a guy and you do lots and lots of listening to, say, a female streamer on YouTube who is not just, she's not using a regular voice, but like she's doing that kind of high-pitched voice to sound extra cute. You know what I'm talking about? If you watch that a lot, you're going to start talking like that, and we'll know. Everyone will know. So just be careful about that. I had a friend when I was living in Korea who was exactly like that, and he had learned Korean exclusively from dating Korean girls and hanging out with Korean girls, and he sounded like a Korean girl, for better or for worse. And he did not know that. I don't know if he'd really, I think he would have cared, but he didn't know it. But anyway, yeah, it happens. So to answer your question, yes. Oh, and do men and women speak the same? No. There are a lot of grammar forms also that will be used more or less by one or the other gender. There aren't things that are like, oh, if you use this word, you're a girl. Kind of, there aren't that many things like that. There are a few expressions, but grammar forms that have a soft feeling are typically more associated with females, like endings like na, nayo, kayo, like that. The ni ending, but it doesn't mean you can't use them as a male. It just means it has a softer feeling. Endings like ku, kuyo instead of koyo. Endings like yo instead of yo. There are a lot of little things like that. I actually made a video about that in my Korean FAQ series. If you want to learn more, just search like men and women in my Korean FAQ series. It's like a bunch of the different grammar forms and things you might hear from either gender. But there isn't like a grammar form. There isn't like general Korean that you can't use if you're one or the other gender. It's not quite like that. Will you do speaking analysis about women in K-pop? I would love to, but my Patreon members keep voting for attractive dudes. So what am I supposed to do? Okay, so let's get started with our class today. For a full review of how to use quoting, I actually did 2 live streams, one on October 8th, 2023, and the other one on October 29th, 2023. In these ones, I covered the plain form, and I also covered how to make quoting forms to say like, I think, and stuff like that. So if you want a full review of plain form and quoting, check out these 2 live streams, as well as just search quoting on my channel. I'm not going to be doing a detailed review of quoting today because I've already taught it, but I am going to do a really quick overview of the basic things you should know before starting in today's lesson, because today's lesson is not really about quoting. It's about more things you can do with the quoting form that you might not already know. So first is plain form. I'm not going to be talking about all the uses of plain form. Again, I have a different class about that, but just how to make the plain form. The plain form is just a plain form. It's a form that doesn't have necessarily a polite feeling or a rude feeling or anything like that. It's very plain. It can be either polite or rude or whatever, depending on how it's used, but on its own, it doesn't have any sort of negative or positive feeling to it. So to make the plain form, which we're going to need for any sort of quote, you just take a verb stem. And if it's an action verb, then you're going to either attach 는다 if it ends in a consonant, or just a nian and ta if it ends with a vowel. There is also one exception. If the verb stem ends with this letter, you remove it. And then you'll attach this and this, because after you remove it, it'll end in a vowel. So really quick, again, I don't want to spend too much time on this, just doing really quick overview so you can kind of know where we are. So like hada, the verb stem is ha, it ends in a vowel, so you get handa. And the verb 먹다, to eat, ends with a consonant, 먹는다, 먹는다. And then the verb 살다, or let's say the verb 알다, to know, ends in this letter, so you remove it, and then you get 안다. That is all you need for action verbs in the plain form. And you've probably seen this before. Hopefully you've seen this before. Hopefully you've already mastered this sort of conjugation, because that's all there is to it for action verbs. Descriptive verbs, however, are even easier. Descriptive verbs, you do absolutely nothing. You take the verb and you're done. So what's a descriptive verb? Let's just take the descriptive verb 바쁘다, to be busy. Well, the plain form is 바쁘다. You're done. The verb 춥다, to be cold, right? Oh, it's got this letter. What do? We don't do anything because it's a descriptive verb. 춥다, we're done. So that's how to make the plain form with action verbs and descriptive verbs in the present tense. But you might be thinking right now, what about the past tense, Billy? What about the future tense? Well, I'll tell you those really quickly as well. Let me leave this up for just a minute, and then I'm going to really quickly tell you those. Sorry, I'm just trying to do a really quick overview of everything. I primarily learned from my girlfriend at first, and every Korean I met says I sound a bit feminine. But, okay, what they actually mean by that is, I mean, they do mean that you sound feminine, but it probably is your intonation, and it probably is your choice of verb endings. If you're speaking like fluently, it's going to be your verb endings. Otherwise, it's just your intonation. So, you'll hear smoother intonation, I feel, among women because it has a softer feeling to it. Like, the smoother you make your intonation, the softer and more polite and more delicate, right? And more friendly that you sound. So that's more of a trait of females in Korea, but that's more of like a cultural trait. You don't have to do it. It just tends to happen. But yeah, if I hear people speak, I can tell like right away who they used for Korean practice. It's easy to tell. Sometimes people will speak completely casually to me when they meet me the first time, but they speak Korean, but they speak completely casually. And I know immediately, oh, you learned from your girlfriend. Like there's no question. I don't even have to ask because it's like, why would I ask? I already know. Or you'll meet someone and they'll be like extremely polite and like they'll speak really slowly and softly. I'm like, oh, well, you must have learned. Like depends, but like really slowly, really softly. Then, oh, you might have learned from, say, grandparents, or you might have learned from, or your parents, maybe more likely. You can hear it. You can hear dialect as well right away. So whenever I do the Korean analysis videos, Um, I spend probably like 5 days, minimum 4 days, sometimes 5 days of research per member that I do. That's full days where I wake up in the morning and shower, and the whole day I'm watching their clips and taking notes. And I'll do that for 4 or 5 days, sometimes longer. The BTS series, I think, was like a week for each member. And I did, a whole week for each member. It took a very long time, months to do each series. The recent series I'm doing with Stray Kids also, I calculated at close to 2 months full of research for them. But the voice tone, how they sound, I can tell that in 10 seconds. The rest of the information, the rest of the time I need is just to find examples of that so that I can prove it to the audience, what I'm talking about. But if I didn't have to do research, if I just listen to someone speak for 10 minutes, I can tell you like 70% of what I say in those videos right away, within an hour. The rest of that, the extra 20 or 30%, that's the extra research that I do to make sure that I'm not missing like, oh, they're filler words, or this is how they learn their dialect specifically. Not just that they're using it, but here's where they learned it from. Or let's look specifically at let me show you exactly what their intonation is doing. Like that sort of details is what takes the extra work. But just like, how do they sound, overall, what is their voice tone like? Do I notice any dialect? All that stuff is like, you can pick it up in 10 minutes. It's pretty trivial, but yeah, they do take a lot of time to research. I did a few years of Japanese, and women and men speak quite differently. Yes, that's true. If you were asking me about Japanese, I would have told you 100% there are different forms too. I can think already of right now, one form, no, 2 forms. Kashira, wa. What else? If I think of a few more seconds, I can probably come up with a few other forms in Japanese that are like women specific. Atashi. Yeah, there we go. Okay. And it would keep going on and on and on. Korean doesn't have any of that. There are, like I said, forms that are more used by women but not because of their association with women, but because they are softer sounding, and it's just more of a cultural difference. There are some things in Japan that are like way more gender separated than Korea, and other things where Korea does it like way more to the extreme, like politeness levels are much more strict in Korea than they are in Japanese. So yeah. Okay. Past tense and future tense plain form are also very simple. The past tense, all you do is you conjugate any verb, action verb or descriptive verb, into the past tense as usual. So you'll have to apply any sort of exceptions, all the rules, and then once you get to this at the bottom, you just attach ha and you're done. So hada, to do, normally would be like 했어요 or something like that. 먹다 would be 먹었어요, right? 먹었. Once you get to here, you just do 다. 했다, 먹었다. Every verb is the same for this. That's the past tense. Super easy. Future tense is also very easy. You know how you start with that 겠다 form? Like 하다 is 하겠다, 먹다 is 먹겠다. There are no exceptions for this. You simply slap 겠다 to the end and conjugate it, like 겠습니다, 겠어요, like that. That's all you do. You just do this. You just attach 겠다, and there's the future tense plain form. Or if you wanted to use the 것이다 ending, right, for making the future tense, like 할 거예요. Well, normally you start with 할 것이다, and then you conjugate this, right? Like 것이에요, or maybe 거예요, 거야. Well, that's it. You're done. 것이다. You're done. Or if you wanted to do a shortened version of that, you start with, for example, if you were going to say like 거예요, like that or something, or 거야. Well, all you do is you just attach 다 there. 거다. So like 하다 is 할 거다. That's it. So really, the only thing that you're memorizing with plain form is for action verbs in the present tense. Everything else is ridiculously easy, right? Descriptive verbs are already done. Past tense is already done. Future tense is already done. And there's one more exception, though, that you need to know. And that's the verbs 있다 and 없다. Now, to exist and to not exist. Technically, these can be used like action verbs, but these two verbs always conjugate as if they were descriptive verbs in this form. Actually, I'd take it back. Not always. There is an exception. If you want to know, you can ask me at the end of class, what is the exception for this? But the exception is 있다 and 없다 are just as is when you conjugate them. So 집에 있다, to be at home. 집에 있다. There's the whole thing. 있다 is just 있다. 없다 is just 없다 in the plain form. No other exceptions. In fact, the only exception was in present tense action verb with the verb stem ends with the L letter. That's it. Everything else is simple. So, okay. So that is really quickly just how to conjugate the plain form. So then what can we do with the plain form? We can do a lot of stuff. You might have already learned that you can make quotes with it. You may have learned that you can say, I think, with the quoting form. But let's just talk about the base form for quoting. This is the plain form base. This is the base form when you're making a quote. You take the plain form and you directly attach onto that ko. And then you follow that with any verb that expresses what you're doing with that quote. Like to say, or we learned also to think, maybe to ask, maybe to yell, maybe to sing, whatever. Anything you want to do with that quote. Now, there are two exceptions that you do have to learn with this quoting form. And they're only with these verbs, ida and 아니다. Oops. ida and 아니다 have different forms when they're used in this arrangement. Now, normally the plain form of ida is, well, it's a descriptive verb, so it's ida. And same with 아니다, to not be, 아니다, the end. But when they're used with 고, they actually change very slightly. ida will become 이다고 after a consonant, or simply 라고 after a vowel. And 아니다 becomes 아니라고, whether it's after a consonant or a vowel. The reason that this also has an exception is really because 아니다 is simply an, not, ida, as one verb, to not be. So that's why it has this same sort of ending. But that's it. ida becomes 이라고 or 라고. Every other verb is the exact same as this. So now we have a quoting statement. Now we have a quoting form. But what can we do with that? I'm going to leave this up for just a minute, and then I'm going to give you some of the basic verbs first, and then we're going to go over some more cool verbs that we can use with the same form. Yeah, boku, ore, that's right. Boku would be more generic. Like, girls can use boku as well, but guys might, and then ore as well. Guys will typically use the ore and boku a little bit more than the girls will. It's kind of like that. Like I said, Korean doesn't really have that. Oh, Alex is asking a good question. This works both ways. An older person patterning off a younger person's speaking patterns. Why can't I say patterns? Including intonation or lower voice, dialect, gender difference. Yes. And I knew someone who was older, not old, but older. Like, how old were they? 60? And they were listening to like teenagers on YouTube doing vlogs for practicing Korean. It sounded very unnatural because you could hear their voice. The reason it was unnatural is not because it's unnatural to speak like a teenager. Although some of the skibidi-doo memes make me think that might not be so, but it's because their voice in English would be like, you know, normal tone, like, oh yes, it's very nice. And then in Korean it'd be, oh, like you could hear it jump to a different, like completely different. Now everyone will have a slight difference in how they speak in Korean and English, simply because when you learn another language, you're crafting a new persona for yourself. It's just a normal thing of speaking languages, is that you'll have a different persona for another language, and it'll get stronger the more you speak that language, where you have a slightly different person in each language, I guess, like kind of different person hiding in each language, basically. But yeah, you could hear their voice would like jump like a lot, and they would, it was very awkward. It's like Japanese iru aru. No, because ita can be used for both iru and aru in Japanese. There aren't any actually. If anyone's watching and you've already studied Japanese and you're doing the thing that I used to do, where you're like, oh, it's just like this in Japanese. Stop yourself. There is nothing that is just like this in Japanese, except things that are, kind of similar in this situation of Japanese. Sure. But there isn't anything that's actually an equivalent, because the languages don't have any common ancestry. They're unrelated to each other. They have similarities from centuries of close contact, as well as people going from one country to the other, as well as sharing about 60% of their vocab from Chinese, sometimes maybe even a little more, like 65, depending on who you ask. But besides that, they're not related languages. So you'll find similarities that are, in this situation, it's just like this, but not any equivalence, if that helps. So just keep that in mind. It'll help you when you learn something new. It's okay to think, it's kind of like that in Japanese, but don't think, it's just like that. It's not just like that. It's kind of like that. In this situation, it's like that. But be careful, because you'll have, I'm getting a little far from the lesson today, but there are lots of situations where if you simply translate something from Korean and Japanese, you'll think it makes sense until you say it to someone and ask them if it sounds natural, and they'll tell you it doesn't. It sounds like a Japanese person speaking Korean, or vice versa. And I had that as well. And it's nothing you can't really do anything about it. It's just that the languages aren't really related to each other. Are you fluent in Japanese? No. On the best day, I would have been intermediate. I studied for about a little less than 3 years, and I could be conversational at best, but that was over 20 years ago. But because I studied it so much during that less than 3 years, like I really did intensive study, like hours and hours a day, and practicing, I can still, even though I haven't touched it in so long, I can still understand a lot. I can watch shows without subtitles. I can read it slowly without a translator, and I can speak it really slowly and basically. So it's enough to get around, but I'm not fluent. Although if you just say konnichiwa, they're going to say, nihongo perepera desu ne. Like, you're going to get that no matter what you say, but no, not at all. I think that's what they call a sprachbund. Yes, that is the exact word that they call it, and I forgot that word, but that is what they call it. Unrelated languages that seem related. Did you learn Japanese before? Yes, I was studying Japanese. Japanese is what got me into Korean. I did Japanese on my own for, under 3 years before I even touched Korean. So I was doing it from like 2002, 2003, 2004, or no, 2003. Sorry, I think I started in 2003. I can't remember. Sometime around there. No, it was 2002, 2003, 2004, and then a bit into 2005, but it wasn't the whole 2002 year. So total was just under 3 years, I think. But then I did Korean, and I never went back to Japanese intensively anyway. I tried to do a little bit in like 2009, 2008 or 2009. I did some Japanese. I went back to Japanese for a while. I actually subtitled a show. I'm not going to tell you, but I was a subtitler for a random Japanese show. And then what else did I do? Yeah, I was kind of going back to it, but then I realized, no, I should just stick to Korean. I'm better at Korean now anyway. And all my Japanese friends already spoke perfect English, so there wasn't really a benefit to it. And I already at that point had a lot more Korean friends. So yeah. Yeah, Takeshi's Castle. I didn't watch that, actually. I didn't watch that, but I knew of it. That wasn't the type of show, like the library. That wasn't the type of show I would watch, but I was aware of that. I was more into manzai comedy shows. Oh man, I still like that. I still like that sort of comedy. And then dramas. I watched so many Japanese dramas. I've watched like 100 times more Japanese dramas than I have Korean dramas. And I've only watched like maybe a dozen Korean dramas total. So yeah, I've watched a ton of Japanese dramas, but it's good. I mean, it's useful. I can still watch them. I don't need subtitles, which is nice. So I don't have to wait for a site to put out their, fan subtitles. I'm like, oh, it's fine. As long as it's nothing like too crazy. Okay. That's a long enough break. Sorry, going off on a tangent. But no, don't get your Japanese advice from me. Just stick. I'm confident with what I tell you about Korean, but my Japanese knowledge is not only old, but it's very extremely rusty, and it was never sharp and polished to begin with. So I won't pretend to speak fluent Japanese, but on a really good day back when I was studying it, I would have been decently conversational. But okay, so some really common verbs. I'm just going to write up a few. Actually, I'm going to do it. Just for a refresher, here are a few common verbs that you'll see with quoting, like 말하다, like I said. Let's just use the verb 좋아하다, to like. So 좋아하다 in the plain form is 좋아한다 in the present tense. 좋아한다고 말했어요. So 했어요, I said, I spoke, I said, 좋아한다, I like it. 좋아한다고 말했어요. So I said, or someone else said, that they like it. This verb, though, is most often just left as 하다. So the 말 is understood. 좋아한다고 했어요. So I said, or someone said, that they like it. Pretty easy. I've done other lessons about this. Hopefully you already know this. Or you can say 이야기하다, as in to tell, like to talk about something, like explained. Where 말하다 is just, I just moved my mouth and said it. That's 말하다. 이야기하다 is like we talked about it, or I explained. I told someone that. 좋아한다고 얘기했어요. This one is commonly pronounced in regular speech as 얘기, but 이야기 is the original word. 좋아한다고 이야기했어요, or 좋아한다고 얘기했어요. So I told them, I talked with them about how I like it. Cool. 듣다, to hear or to listen. So in this case, I heard 좋아한다고 들었어요. I heard someone say, I heard that they like it. So why'd you give this gift to 철수? Oh, 좋아한다고 들었어요. I heard that he liked it. 좋아한다고 들었어요. I heard that 철수 likes it. 외치다, to shout or to yell. 좋아한다고 외쳤어요. So I shouted 좋아한다고. I said 좋아한다고 외쳤어요. So I shouted 좋아한다. I shouted that I like it. So like that. So these are just some common verbs. You probably know all of these, but I do want to introduce one more really common verb that you should also know, but you might not know this one. This one could get a whole lesson on its own because it actually has a lot of uses. But this one basically means, actually, I'll keep it even simpler. This one basically means to say, like someone said something, just like 말하다. But this one is only used in informal, like everyday spoken conversation. Don't use this one on your test. It's not rude or anything, but it's less proper than just using 말하다. 그러다. Now, 그러다 conjugates as 그래 or 그래요, or in the past tense, 그랬어요. So this one is used the same way as 말하다. But the nuance is, instead of saying like, I said, 좋아한다고 말했어요. I said that I like it. This one's like, 좋아한다고 그랬어요. I said I like it. I said I like it. It just has a slightly more conversational feel to it. I think it's a better choice for everyday conversation. Either use 하다 by itself or 그러다. So literally this one means to say so, to say that. As in what I just said before is what that person said, like that. Okay, so there are actually a lot of other verbs that we could use with this quoting form, but I don't want to just focus on things you can say or yell or ask or hear or anything like that, because there are completely different things that we can also do with the quoting form that doesn't have to do with any of those verbs about speaking. Oh, and if you want some more examples of these, make sure to check out the worksheet on my Patreon. There are extra examples on there. I won't have time for all of them today, so if you feel like, oh, I wish I had some more examples of this, I have worksheets and outlines for all of it. I'll actually post those in the chat. Yeah, I know just enough Japanese to know that it's not related to Korean. And I know plenty of Korean to know it's really not related to Korean. But still, I know for the foreseeable future, there are always going to be people who I hear of, like comparing the languages together. Like, oh, this is exactly like this in Japanese. And I always have to think like, no, it's not exactly like that. But yeah, there are lots of similarities. Just keep in mind that no, the languages are not actually related. Any similarities may only show up in this usage, like this specific type of form. And if you just say, oh, this is this, you're going to sound really, really weird in Korean or either Japanese as well. 믿다 is an action verb. It means to trust or believe. You can also use the quoting form we learned, plain form and 고, with 믿다. So what would that sound like? For example, let me give you a quick example. Yeah, okay. Don't worry if you don't know all of these words. 알아서 is basically like figuring it out on your own. 잘하다 is to do something well, to be good at doing something. 잘할 거예요, right? 거라고 is 거 plus 이라고. In this case, it ends with a vowel, so it's 거라고 because it's 것이다. Oops, you can't see down here. 것이다 here is the future tense. So 할 거예요, 할 것이다, basically. 잘 할 거라고 믿어요. So I trust or I believe, quote, 알아서, you can ignore this if you don't know what it means. So you'll figure it out, basically. 잘 할 거라고 믿어요. I trust that you will 잘 할 거예요, that you will do a good job. You'll do well, basically. So 알아서 잘 할 거라고 믿어요. So I trust that they're going to do a good job and figure it out on their own, is what you're saying. So I trust that. That. Now, I think that in English works as a decent way to translate. You can kind of think as, let me say this again. You can kind of think as the word, I can't speak. This is a decent way to translate it in English. I said that. I heard that, right? With our other verbs. I believe that. I trust that. So you can kind of think of the quoting form with 고 and a plain form as kind of meaning like that in that way. Now, not that in every usage, but just that in this sort of usage. So I believe that. I trust that. Okay, let me give you one more sentence. And there are more sentences in the worksheet as well. I can't do too many because I know we don't have that much time, but. Hey, 일기예보 is weather report. No, this is not a JoJo reference. 맞다 is to be correct, to be right. 저는 일기예보가 맞다. So the weather report is correct. 맞을 거예요. 맞을 거라고 믿어요. So I believe or I trust that the weather report will be correct. 저는 일기예보가 맞을 거라고 믿어요. So I trust that the weather report will be correct. I trust that the weather report will be correct. Now, that is optional in English. I trust the weather report will be correct is also perfectly fine. But it has that usage of I trust that, I believe that, or with the other verbs. Again, I said that, I heard that, I shouted that, I talked about that. Any usage like that. Okay, before we go on to the next verb, I really want to make sure you can understand this. I wonder if the JoJo character translated like that into Korean. I haven't watched any JoJo with Korean subtitles. I'm not sure what its name is, but I'm pretty sure they just translate it literally from the Japanese sound into like Konglish. They just write the Japanese name, which is from the band. They would just write the band's name directly in Hangul, which will be the sound of the group, is what they're going to do. Pretty sure about that. Oh, Kai, welcome. I'm late. Hi, friends. Welcome, Kai. Okay. So, the other reason I think that is a really good translation for any sort of like quoting form. Oh, I got a donation. Hold on. Hey, it's Kai. Kai. Top of the hour, belated top of the hour, signed a late pupil. Yeah, if you just got here right now, you haven't missed too much. As long as you know how to make the plain form and how to make basic quotes, like I said that or they heard that. We're going to be using quoting forms to do more things today. So we just did the verb 믿다, to trust, like, or believe. So I believe that, or I trust that. You can use with the exact same form as you would say, I think that. In fact, we saw this form already with the verb 생각하다, right? Why did I write that all weird? Like, 생각하다 also can do the same thing, right? Like you can say, 알아서 잘할 거라고 생각해요. I think that they will handle it well. Or 저는 일기예보가 맞을 거라고 생각해요. So I think that the weather report will be correct. It's the exact same usage, but we can switch the verb if you think of it as meaning that. Now, I do need to say there is one other form that also means, no, not means, but there is one other verb or form. I'll write it up first. When was this? 1/26/25. I did a class January 26, 2025 about the form 으리라고 믿다. This was actually 으리라고 like that. Go was optional. This form is used also to say I trust or I believe, but it's more like I believe something will be. I trust something will be. This is a less common form, but you'll also see this one, but it has a different translation. It doesn't translate as I believe that quite, or I trust that quite. It's a little bit different usage for something that will be. I have a separate live stream about this form 으리라고 믿다, which is also used to say I believe or I trust something. And you can check it out from January 26, 2025 if you're interested in learning more about that. But that's a different form. Okay, so if quoting forms are kind of like something that, like, I think that the weather report will be correct. I believe that the weather report will be correct. Or I think that. Or I said that. Or I heard that. Can you think of any other verbs without looking at the title of this lesson that have that sort of usage where you could say, I something that? What else can you think about? Just think about that for a second before I write it down. 만세 외치라고 말했다. So you're saying I said shout 만세. Yeah, it's not strictly quoting as in quote. It's more quoting as in like that. Okay, we have a few. There is one I do want to mention. 쓰다. So I wrote. Sure, I wrote that. Yeah. 알다. So I know that. You actually would use a different form for that. You would say, I know the fact that. And I might do another live stream about that. I've done a live stream about that in the past. You want the form 다는 것. And then you can use that with like 알다 or 모르다, to know or to not know. This is the normal way you're going to say, I know that, because you're saying, I know the fact that, which is a slightly different usage in Korean. Now, you could use 알다 with this form as well, but this is the normal way you're going to see it. So like, 잘할 거라는 것을 알다. I have a different live stream about that, but again, I might do a repeat of that with a full review. But yes, to write, or let's see what else we have. I want something that's different than think. Noah Deeps is saying 보다. Yeah, but although I might do a separate live about that because it's a little bit different than simply think. There's a little bit of different nuance. I made that. I will do well. Nope, not make. Let's see. So you can look at the title of the lesson now. What about I promise? Now, I promise isn't necessarily like you're saying something. I mean, you probably said it. But you can also promise that you will do something, right? Yeah. You can do that too. So we're going to talk about two uses of 약속하다, two grammar forms that it's used with, starting with the one we're doing today. So let me just make a simple sentence. Here we're going to have 약속할게요. 할게요 is like I'm going to, I am. Just so you know, I'm promising you 다시 again, 오다, to come here. Future tense, 오겠다. That's the future tense form of 오다 in the plain form. 오겠다고 약속할게요. Or you could say 약속했어요. I promised. 다시 오겠다고 약속할게요. So I promise you that I'll come here again. I promise you that. Again, that. I promise you that I will 오겠다. Come here, 다시. Again, 다시 오겠다고 약속할게요. So I promise that I will come here again. Don't worry. I promise I'll come back. 다시 오겠다고 약속할게요. So I promise that. Now, if you've watched all of my live streams before, I've actually talked about a different form you can also use to say that you're promising something, but it's a little bit different. So if you've never used 약속하다 before, you don't know how to use it and you're seeing it for the first time, don't worry about the next thing I'm going to tell you. there's one more way you can also use 약속하다 with a different form, and that is with the form 기로. 기로 is when you're deciding to do something. So it's used with verbs like decided to do, like I decided to go, I decided to eat, I made up my mind to quit that, or I decided I wanted to do something like that. But it can also be used with the verb 약속하다, just like before. And you can say that you promised to do something. Like, for example, I promised to eat pizza. Or maybe I promised not to eat pizza. 피자를 안 먹기로. So, or I promised to go somewhere. 가기, like 가다. 가기로 약속하다. To promise to go or to promise to do. 하다, 하기로 약속했어요. 다이어트 하기로 약속했어요. So I promised to diet. But this one has the meaning of like to. I promised to do something. Whereas the quoting version has the nuance of I promised that. So because it's I promised that, you're going to be using it most of the time with a future tense because you're promising that you will do something. Usually you're going to say I promised that I will, not I promised that I did something. You could promise you didn't do something, right? But most of the time it's going to be I promise I will do something. But this one's different. This one's to make a promise, basically to decide to do something. Now, I also have a separate live stream about this form from September 6, 2020. I talked about the 기로 form as well as several verbs it's used with. So if you want to learn more about this form to do something like deciding, check out that live stream. But again, this form with quoting is the nuance of promise that. Okay, we're almost done with the basic verbs. I do have a bunch more I want to cover, but I do want to get through these basic ones first. The next verb I wanted to talk about is 부르다, and that's to call. Now, this can be used like to call out to someone, like to sing something, to call, like 부르다. That's what 부르다 actually means. But when you're using it with a noun, like a person, place, or a thing, it means to call someone or to call something, whatever. So like you can call me Billy. You can call them your older brother. People call that guy the Swiffer picker-upper. I don't know. People like calling someone anything or calling something something. And this is also used with the quoting form. So you take a noun, and then because you're talking about calling something or calling someone, you're saying literally to call or to sing that someone is something. So you're going to use this with the verb ida, which means that here you're going to use 이라고. So noun 이라고 부르다 is to call something or someone, whatever it is. I'll give you an example sentence in just a second. So these verbs I'm doing right now, I'm giving to you them individually. After we do this, I'm going to give you a bunch of verbs that are going to be self-explanatory though. But I did want to explain these ones one at a time. It's ironic you said Japanese is not the same because yakusoku is promise. It's not because, okay. In Japanese, do you use yakusoku also for meeting your friend? I'm just curious. I can't remember actually, so I'm asking you. The word originally came from Chinese, which is why Korean and Japanese have the same word for a lot of things. Vocabulary-wise, they shared the same words for 60-something%, 60 to 65% of both of the languages share the same vocabulary originally from Chinese. But over the years, because they originally got shared a long time ago, sometimes the meanings are different in the countries. And sometimes it's the exact same word. But yeah, it's not quite the same thing. So Korean, you can use 약속 for just any sort of appointment. It can be business appointment or just, hey, I promised to meet a friend. 오늘 친구랑 약속 있어가지고 못 만날 것 같아. Like, 약속 is just any sort of promise to meet someone. or it can also be a promise, literally. But it's used more for like an appointment or for a meeting as well. So the word is going to be the same because it has the same root. That's why there are so many that sound similar. But sometimes the meanings are a little bit different because the words didn't come over all at the same time. Chinese will have the biggest ones for appointment. Yeah. Would you say you have a yakusoku with your best friend in Japanese? I don't know, actually. I can't remember if they'd use it that way. If someone used it, I'd understand it. But like I said, my speaking isn't up to my listening in Japanese. But I'm trying to think, what would you say? I think it might sound a little bit, to me, my feeling is like it feels a little more formal if you were to say an appointment with a friend. Whereas in Korean, it's like the default word, like just you're meeting a friend. I said I'd meet my friend today. It's not like I have an appointment with my friend. Just, oh yeah, today I'm hanging out with my friend. That's it. That's 약속 in Korean. I'm always winging it. Okay, I don't know. And it might actually be used that way. I'm just kind of trying to point out that there could be differences in usage between the words in different languages. Even though they came from the same word, they're not necessarily the same usage of that word. Okay. Is it fine, Noah? Is that like the natural way to say, I promised my friend I'll hang out with them today? Or does it sound like actually saying, because I know you could say that, but does it sound like you're saying you actually have an appointment? It doesn't. If you say like you have a 약속 with your friend in Korean, it doesn't necessarily mean it's on your calendar. That's the nuance of appointment in English, is like, I have it scheduled, it's ready to go, I'm going to do it today. Whereas in Korean, it's more like, I have a prior commitment. I've already told them that I'm doing that. It might not be on your calendar. It's just a casual way to refer to that you've made an appointment with someone. Anyway, we need someone who speaks fluent Japanese. Yeah, I mean, that would be great. But sometimes we do. Sometimes I've had Japanese speakers stop by the live stream. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, another one I can think of is when you use to meet someone. The usage of, anyway, Japanese, they use it with a different particle entirely. But meeting in Korean also implies that you're dating someone. I don't think I don't remember if you do that in Japanese. I think they do a different word for dating. But in Korean, you can use meet for that. Like, oh, are you still meeting? Like that. Or see, to use the word for see for to meet. Like, oh yeah, I saw him today. That means I met them today. Whereas in Japanese, I think the miru, is more of a vision thing because they use the hanta for the kanji for see. Whereas in Korean, it doesn't necessarily imply see. It implies thinking. It implies meeting someone. Yeah, so it's a little bit, anyway, there are a bunch of little tiny things here. It would be great if we had someone who speaks Japanese who could like quiz me with them, like say, hey, how does this sound in Korean? And I can explain and then we can compare. 친구한테 약속? You wouldn't necessarily do it like that, but 약속 is more of a loose plan. Yeah, it can be an actual promise, but it's more of like, I told my friend I'm meeting them today. The end. So, yeah, tsukiyao. That's right. Tsukiyao is dating, but in Korean, you can use ao by itself for dating someone. Then the usage is totally different. Like you'd say mada mitenai for I haven't seen them yet. But in Korean, they would say minakatta indirectly. So it's, yeah, everything's different. And if you just translate, you're going to sound really awkward. But the more you compare them, if you start looking at like similarities, the more they fall apart. Like if the languages were related, you should see the opposite. The more you look into them, the more similarities you find. And it's especially the farther back you go, right? The farther back you go, you should see more similarities with the languages. Even if today there aren't that many, you should think, well, okay, but let's go back 100 years. Were they more similar? No, they weren't. They were less similar. And go back 500 years, like, whoa, really dissimilar. And then a lot of the things that people will point out as being similar, like the subject marker both being ka, didn't even exist until the 1600s in Korea. They didn't use it before then. So likely it actually came from Japanese, which is kind of funny. And it didn't exist originally it didn't exist in Korean. So it's like a lot of the similarities people will show and be like, oh, look, they even have the same ending or this. Those are like recent additions to the language. But when you look farther and farther back, while there are still some parts, there are like similarities between certain words, sometimes the languages seem to get more different. So, which is not what you would expect to see if they were related. Now, it's still possible that they have a shared, like they're still related in some way, not because there's evidence that supports that, but because there isn't really evidence that disproves it completely, because we don't have much to go off of. There aren't that many records you can check besides, like, I think some of the earliest stuff is like 800s or 900s or whatever, like written place names in Korea. So like, how can you really compare if the languages are similar if you can't really go much further than 1,000 or so years back to even compare? Yeah, that's what makes it hard. That's why it's not impossible. But so far, there isn't really enough evidence to say that they are. Which is really fun. If you ever look at like really old Korean, hold on, I'm going to write an example on the board first. If you look at like some really old Korean, you'll find that what we call Korean today was not a thing in the past. Like there were, at least from earlier periods in Korea, so like going back 800, 1,000 years ago, there wasn't like a one Korean language. There were Koreanic, there were like Korea-ish languages that you could understand each other for the most part, but they were considered like different languages, several different languages in Korea. So you can't really say it's like, oh, well, Korean is like that word used to be in Korean. Not really, because there were multiple Korea kingdoms and there were multiple languages kind of spoken. And when you look at the old words that we do have, like place names, which is some of the oldest words that we have for any language, any evidence of Korean is like the old Korean place names for things. They don't sound anything at all like modern Korean. They have no similarities. It's like a completely different language. Like, what the heck were they saying? These words you can't even write them accurately with Korean. I mean, even something as simple as the city of Seoul had a different name, go back a few hundred years ago, and then go back a few hundred years before that, and it's unrecognizable. The closest similarity, the closest word you even have to Seoul, it was like something like this. I think it's down here. Sorry. I think I wrote that up. Yeah, it's supposed to be down here. Like, it was like Seoul or something like that. And that's the closest you can even get to. But then if you think about it, like, what the heck did this word mean? Like, why is that the name of the? And then there's like older. Anyway, the farther back you go, the less it makes any sense. 형이라고 부를게요. So 부르다 is to call. So 형, older brother. 형이라고 부를게요. So I will call, in this case, I'll call you my older brother. 형이라고 부를게요. I'm going to call you my older brother because we're really good friends and I look up to you. 형이라고 부를게요. I'll call you my older brother. So here, I will call, literally like I will say out loud, I will sing that you are, 이라고 is 이다, remember, to be, are 형. So I will call out that you are my older brother. I will say, I will call you my older brother. 형이라고 부를게요. Kind of like older English, more so. Because if you look at old English, now with the exception of like really old English, which wasn't really English, it'd be more like Norse, right? If you go to like old English, like Shakespeare or like 1400s English, you can still understand, you can still see it's English. You'll see a lot of words you don't know and verb endings and everything. It looks foreign, but if you really look into it, it's English, right? But when you go past that to Norse as well, like back, you can still recognize a lot of the English in it. And it'll have bits and pieces of like, oh, I know that word and stuff. Korean's worse, where when you look at it, it's like, what the hell is that? Like no semblance of Korean, none of the markers you're looking for, none of the verb endings, none of the words, none of the verbs. They don't actually even know what a lot of the older Korean words meant. Like you might hear, what was one of the examples? I can't think of it right now, so I'm not going to make it up. But there, if you look up the word arisu, was one of the words for the Han River. There are a couple others, but this was one of the words for the Han River. They also, funnily enough, their brand of tap water that you can get around Seoul is also referred to as arisu for that. So if you ever see like a tap water fountain that says arisu, they're using reference to their old word for the river. But they don't actually know what that meant. If it was arisu, like su for water, but then why was it su? Because su is the modern reading of the Hanja. So was it something su like water, or was it a different word? Like what did it mean? And they'll have like different theories. Oh, well, it meant this, or maybe it meant this. Like you have a lot of words in older Korean. Arisu is a good example. You can just Google it to find out what I'm talking about, because I can't remember it well enough to share the story with you. I'm sorry. But you'll see like linguists theorize that the meaning of the word was this. You'll see that for like everything. You'll never see the meaning of the word was this, because you can't know when you don't have enough other Korean to construct to figure out what it was, because there was no easy writing system. There was basically romanization from, actually, I guess I won't go into all of this, but the main thing was there would be a romanization of Korean using Chinese. And if it was used, like Chinese people would write the Korean sounds using their language, but you don't know what those sounds should have been said like. Like if someone were to write today, seeing if I'm losing it. Okay, I'm not losing too many of you, so I'll keep going. Like, let me see. If someone wrote Weigugin, you would probably be able to tell it's Weigugin, right? Because most people have an idea like, oh, that's a long word. It's supposed to be like that. But what if someone wrote something like, what if someone wrote something like this? Now, Pepta. What if someone wrote something like this? Now, let's say there are no romanization rules, because there weren't. There weren't any romanization rules if you go back even like 100 years ago. But what if someone tried to write Pepta as like this? Because that's what it sounded like. Oh, Pepta. It sounds like Puipdar. At that time of writing it, Puipdar kind of sounds like Pepta, a little bit. But what if you found this? What if this wasn't a known word? So we don't know Pepta. Let's say it's not a word used today. There's no word that sounds like that today. How the heck do you know what they were talking about if they wrote this? And then to make it worse, you don't know how that person would have said this word. What if they had a weird pronunciation where the place they were from, they pronounced that like an A, right? Like we might have like, you know, words that are pronounced different than they're spelled in English all the time. What if the way that they wrote it would have been pronounced a little bit different, or like maybe a tone? So what if it was like Papdo? Like you'd have no idea. Are they talking about like Pepto-Bismol, or are they talking about like a verb? And that's kind of what you get when you're looking at like older Chinese romanization of Korean words, of place names. So like, you know how it would have been written in Chinese by a certain person in a certain area down at this time, talking about this other area. Like, you don't know. That's the problem, is there's just not enough like good quality information when you actually go like really far back into Korean, which makes it really hard to figure out anything. So as a result, I know very little, if anything, about this subject. I do have a few friends though, who actually, one friend I can really think about, who's like specialist in like linguistics and Korean and stuff like that, who I wish someday would start a YouTube channel and make more videos about this. But it's really interesting, but just how confusing it is to find out root words and like old words of Korean, because it's so hard to even figure out what the sounds would have been in the first place. Like if you know that, oh, that's exactly how it's supposed to be sounded, then you could much more easily figure out, oh, well, then that must be the same root as this. It must have this meaning. But without that, it's kind of hard. Koreans would do that too. Koreans would also write their own language using Chinese sometimes. Because there was, before Hangul was widely adopted, that was one of the ways to write things. Poetry was done a lot in that sort of style. If you search Hyanga poetry was like written in that sort of style where they would use the characters to represent Korean. But that's even much easier to read though today because it's not as old than stuff that was written in the other style. I believe it's Idu is what it's called. If you're ever curious and you want to fall down a rabbit hole for like 3 years, then search Idu. Kugyol was also another one. Kugyol, Idu were two of the ways they wrote it. I think it was Hyanga. I think that's Hyanga. I might be making a mistake there, but that's the one for the poetry. But yeah, these two were the ones you could search if you want to know more about like the older style of writing. But I don't know that much about it, so. Yeah, Beowulf, I know what you're talking about. I have tried it. I can't read it, but it still looks more like English today than Korean of the past looks like Korean today. Okay. 사람들은, so people, that 원숭이, that monkey를 왕자 is a prince. 왕자라고 불러요. So they call that monkey 왕자. They call that monkey prince. So people call that monkey prince. 사람들은 저 원숭이를 왕자라고 불러요. So, hey, that monkey over there, you see that monkey? People call that monkey prince. It's their nickname. 사람들은 저 원숭이를 왕자라고 불러요. Yeah, I'm still okay on time, but I do have to move a little bit quicker because I want to go through several other. I still have 4 more example sentences and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 more verbs I need to cover. But in Blackpool, the monkey gets tried as a French spy. Would they maybe crash a session and talk to you about this? I wish. I've talked with them a lot online. They have like such cool information about stuff, but I think they just don't really want to be involved in social media or anything like that. Your textbook are ordered? Oh, cool. Nice. I'm here if you need me. I have degrees in language. Language history is my jam. Yeah, I feel like I don't have enough time to get into researching enough that I can make it into a lesson. So you've never seen me make lessons about old Korean before because I'm not knowledgeable enough to do that sort of thing. Like me telling you a cool story every now and then is the best that I can do. It's a really, really deep rabbit hole. And I'm not going to pretend to know much more than like surface information about how it works. But that's the surface information about how it works, is basically we don't know a lot. So, yeah. I mean, if anything, something interesting about Korean is like a lot of Korean words today that you might think are Korean also came sometimes from other languages. Sometimes you get words from Japanese, or you get grammar from Japanese sometimes as well. Like I think my opinion, I made a video about this, but the ga ending, the ga subject marker, which actually existed in Korean already, I believe it came into popularity because of Japan, because that matches with the time when Japan was invading over into Korea. But I don't know. And I don't want to claim that because it's not really something I can be confident about. But there are some words also that came over from other languages, like during the 1200s, I believe it was, when the Mongolians basically owned Korea. They kept invading Korea, like smashed it, destroyed tons of stuff, and a lot of Mongol words got into Korean that are still used. Actually, one of them is still used today. A few of them got into the language, but one of them is still used today. I guarantee all of you know this Mongol word. Horasek, for purple, is actually not a Korean color. Funny enough, I never knew BTS were Mongols. Yeah, it's from a bird called like Bora or something that had like a purple or like a dark blue, like a chest on the bird, was like a hunting bird. So they got the color because they didn't have a word for that color. So they got that word from that bird from Mongols. That's also why if you go to Jeju, the island of Jeju today, you'll see tons of horses, because when the Mongols invaded, insert country here, Mongols invaded everywhere, but when they invaded Korea, they took Jeju Island and used it for raising their battle horses. So till this day, there are still horses on Jeju Island from that. Anyway, there are some other words as well that are still around, but nothing as common as that. So they're like little pieces of other culture languages in Korean, and that's one that you can actually verify, but there are tons that we'll never know. We can't verify because that one we only know because they could find the similar word in the Mongol language at the time, but you're not gonna be able to find similar words for stuff beyond that. Okay, so those are the basic verbs you can use for quoting, but remember, I said it's kind of like saying that. You can say a lot of other things with that. So I'm going to write down several more verbs, and I'll give you a few more sentences that we can also use with this exact same quoting form. Yeah, I see a donation. I'm going to check it just after I write this. We still have some space. I'll put this up here. Okay. Oh, Sigominko. Sigominko. Prego. Thank you. Thanks for the live streams. Very informative and entertaining. Say hi to Kikat. Kikat has been in a deep slumber for several months. I'm going to be waking her up. Definitely when I go to Korea again this time, I'd like to film several more videos with her. If you have any requests for Kikat, or situations that would be funny with Kikat, let me know. Maybe I can film something with Kikat when I go to Korea. Sigominko. Fortunately, I still have room to write your name on the board. Oh, that is sour. The hanging of the Hartlepool monkey? Is that something? The Mongols are a particular interest of mine. Yeah. The Mongols and Japanese, in that order, destroyed like the majority of things. If you see something in Korea that says it's a reconstruction, which is like unfortunately, like everything in Korea is a reconstruction, which is really sad, I think. There are very few actual old buildings that are completely remaining in Korea. And it's majorly due to the Mongols. And then after that, Japanese going in. And each time when they invaded, the Mongols were in the 1200s, I think 3 times or more. Anyway, like big invasions. And then Japan, I believe, was 1500s. I might be getting the dates wrong. It's sometime in there. Give me like 100 years off. Each time they would just destroy tons of stuff. So yeah, but you get a lot of influence from that, for better or for worse. But yeah, so if you ever go to Korea and there's something like this building was rebuilt in whatever year, it's like, oh, rebuilt why? Like who destroyed it? Yeah, it's going to be either Mongols or Japan. But with that said, there are some surviving old buildings in Korea, like really old buildings in Korea. They're just rare. If you can find them, it's a real treat. But I feel like maybe this could be something that they should feature in like another K-pop Demon Hunters or something. There's a lot of actual old surviving stuff in Korea that hasn't been destroyed and rebuilt. But I feel like people don't emphasize that when I read the descriptions on like the pamphlets or like on plaques and stuff when I visit places. It doesn't seem like they emphasize that it's something that was never destroyed. I think they should sometimes, because some of that stuff you'll get there and you'll see it and you're like, oh, this is pretty cool. And then you'll find out later after you leave, wait a minute, that thing's that old? Like I think they don't emphasize it enough. Like that's an original. I mention this every time I go to the Suwon Fortress. Like Suwon Fortress was another one of the things that was destroyed, completely destroyed. But there are some pieces of it that are still original, which is kind of cool. But what's cool about it, I think, is that they have the original blueprints for it. So they were able to rebuild it like really accurate, exactly how it used to be, which is one of the reasons I really like it, despite it being a remake, is because they did it so close to the original, like exactly, like materials and everything. But there are some surviving old buildings in Korea, which I think are really cool. One of them is not a monastery, but a place where monks would study in the city of Andong. Let me check the age of that. Actually, I'm really curious because I can't remember how old is it. Andong monk study. City. Let me write it down. 동정사? Let me check. I think it might be here. Yeah. The oldest. Okay. Let me write this from. I'm gonna write it up here. After I tell these verbs, I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna explain it. But it was originally established in the year. Get this. The year 672. Although it has had reconstruction done since then. But it was originally established then, and it looks like the last time they did a reconstruction on it was 1363. No. 1363 was a major reconstruction. I wonder if it was ever. Let me check. No, this was not destroyed by the Mongols, because it seems that the main hall was the early 1200s that it was built, and it's currently the oldest wooden building in all of Korea that's still standing, which is really cool. I've been there like 3 times, I think. Anyway, okay, so I'll go back to that after this lesson. So we've used quoting now to say things like to promise or to believe, but you can also do it for tons of other verbs, and these are just some of the most common ones. I'm going to go through them one at a time. 예상하다, to expect or to forecast. So like I was expecting as in predicting. 상상하다, to imagine. So imagine that something happens. 경고하다, to warn. to give someone a warning that. 기대하다, to look forward to, or to expect something. Yeah, I was looking forward to. I was expecting that would happen. 판단하다, to judge. To judge that something. They judged that it should happen. 설명하다, to explain that. I explained that you need to learn Hangul if you want to master Korean. 요청하다, to request. I requested that they don't do that next time. 발표를 하다, to present. I presented something. I presented that. Or actually, 발표를 would be more like to announce. So 발표를 하다, to announce something. Or 주장하다, to claim. To claim that something happened. So there are many more of these, but these are just some of the most common. I want you to write these down and just be familiar with them. But I also wanted to give you a few example sentences using some of these. I'll leave this up for just a minute while I check this out. So, 봉정사. Yeah. 봉정사. Okay, I'm going to write it down. I'm just going to erase this. Hopefully you got the ones you wanted. But if you didn't, I can rewrite any of them up. The only thing is that if you want to go visit 봉정사, you have to not only go to Andong, which is kind of far. I mean, I did go there twice, actually. But you have to then, from there, take another ride, either drive or taxi, to this place. Because it's in the middle of nowhere, kind of. But the city of Andong itself is a few hours from Seoul, so it's not... You would go there for a day trip, and it's pretty cool. If you visit Andong, you probably went to this location, though, because it's famous in Andong. Yeah. Anyway, check it out. It's a Buddhist monastery, and it has the oldest wooden building in Korea, though it doesn't necessarily look that old because, you know, they painted it and stuff. And it's had reconstruction, but it's still, I really like this place because it feels like different than the like Gyeongbokgung and those other temples that you go to, which kind of feel like a mixture of old with new, like, you know, really modern, nicely maintained buildings, fire extinguishers all over the place. This kind of feels more like an older place, I guess. It just gives me a different feeling. It's smaller, more compact. You know, it feels like everywhere you go, you're kind of like surrounded by different like buildings and stuff. And it's also stuck in the middle of like it's like on a hill. So there are a bunch of trees all around you. So it really feels like you're in the middle of nowhere when you visit there. You have to hike up to get there. So anyway, if you want a fun day trip, I mean, Andong is also pretty cool, but that was my favorite place when I went to Andong. Okay. Billy, is McDonald's cheap or expensive in Korea? Cheaper than the US. Yeah. But expensive because anything that's not Korean food in Korea is pretty expensive compared to Korean food. Like you can get a really big meal in Korea and get full for like less than $10 US. If you went to McDonald's, I mean, I guess you could too, because you can get you can get a couple cheap burgers and fries and not get a drink. But it's not, I don't know, you're just not going to be as satisfied because it's smaller, it's like greasier, and you're going to be hungry again in a couple hours. So yeah, it's kind of expensive for what you get, but nothing is really, like food isn't really expensive in Korea for that sort of stuff. If you want expensive food in Korea, that's going to be like your high quality meat restaurant and stuff. That can be pretty expensive, or like eel, sushi can be kind of expensive, but it's not that bad. It's still cheaper than the US. Okay, first sentence. 지구에 혼자 남았다고 상상해 보세요. 지구 is the earth, 혼자 is alone, by yourself, 남다 is to be left. So 남았다고, past tense. You were left alone on earth. That 상상하다 is to imagine. So imagine, 상상해 보세요. Try imagining that you were left alone on the earth. So try imagine you were left alone. Only you on the earth. 지구에 혼자 남았다고 상상해 보세요. Try to imagine that you were left alone on earth. 지구에 혼자 남았다고 상상해 보세요. So again, imagine that. And then whatever quote, you were left alone on the earth. Imagine that is what it's saying. Where was that barbecue? All you can eat Korean barbecue for $12? That... Okay, it could be you're talking about the franchise 명륜 진사갈비, which is pretty affordable. They might have like a lunch special, and in some areas it could be as low as $12 US. If it's in like one of the areas that's like 15,000원 or like 17,000원 or something like that. But if it's not that place, then it might be a bit, I don't know. It depends. Sometimes I've had all you can eat places that are really cheap and you get what you pay for. But there are exceptions. At 267 pounds, getting full is the challenge. So if you lived in Korea, it would be difficult for you to maintain that weight. That's all I'll say. Not that it's not impossible. There are people that weight in Korea too. But I feel like just because to get anywhere, you have to do so much walking. Even if you're taking the taxi everywhere, you're still going to be doing lots of walking to the taxi and then where you get off to your place and walking around. It's hard to gain weight for me when I'm in Korea, no matter what I eat, just because I'm not eating tons of foreign food. I'll eat mostly Korean food and then just all the walking that I get. So yeah. But then again, I did have a friend in Korea. He did lose a lot of weight. He didn't lose that much, but he did lose still quite a bit. But he was eating Korean meat like every single day and Korean snacks like nonstop. But still, yeah, he still lost a lot of weight though. Even though he didn't really get like down to like as bone skinny as I am, he still did lose quite a bit of weight. Okay. More important though than just your weight, it's like, being healthy, getting a lot of exercise, eating lots of vegetables, right? Actually, I want to do the next one. I want to do this instead. I'm going to switch these. Okay. 수술 is surgery, 없이 is without. So 수술 없이는 without surgery, 불가능하다 is impossible. Now remember that a descriptive verb just conjugates as itself when it's in the plain form. So 불가능하다 is just 불가능하다 in the plain form. 불가능하다고, so that it is impossible without surgery. 설명하다 is to explain. 설명해 드리다, to explain to someone else. So I explained. 설명해 드렸어요. That it's impossible, 불가능하다, without surgery. 수술 없이는 불가능하다고 설명해 드렸어요. So I explained to them that it's impossible, what they want to do, it's impossible without surgery. 수술 없이는 불가능하다고 설명해 드렸어요. Okay, I'll leave this up for just a minute. Imagine Goku eating Korean nonstop. Struggling with the term quoting. How can judging be quoting? No, it's because you're not stupid. It's because there isn't really a better word I can think of to explain it, because what you're using is the quoting form. But a better way to think of quoting in Korean is quotation marks. So here, I explained that 수술 없이는 불가능하다. I explained without surgery, impossible is what you're explaining. So it's better to think of it as like the quoting mark form because it makes it into a quote, but that doesn't necessarily have to be a quote that someone says, right? You can use quotes around movie titles. It's just a quote around a statement, something, a piece of information. In this case, it is impossible without surgery, is what I explained. So you're not saying 수술 없이는 불가능해요. You're not necessarily just saying that, but what you're explaining is that, in other words, in simpler terms, it's impossible without surgery. So it's really just kind of like quotations. In fact, let's look at that a little. Let's look at that one more time. Okay, 이건, so this thing, this is 누구의 잘못, someone's 잘못, someone's mistake. 도 아니다. It is not someone's mistake. 라고 판단하다 is to judge. So 판단했어요. They judged that 누구의 잘못도 아니다. This is no one's mistake. Now here, notice that it's 아니다 and not 아니라고. You could say 누구의 잘못도 아니라고 판단했어요. You could say 누구의 잘못도 아니라고 판단했어요. They judged that it is no one's mistake. But what you're saying by saying 아니다 and then adding 이라고, or in this case 라고 because it ends in a vowel, what you're saying here is actually the literal quote of 누구의 잘못도 아니다. That's what they actually said. So you can also use these forms to make a literal direct quote of exactly what someone said. Not saying like, I heard that they liked cheese, but what they actually said was, cheese is great. No. If you want to quote, I heard they said, I like cheese. You can quote that. I said, I don't want to go. Normally means, I really would rather not go, but it could also be 안 간다고 말했어요. So I said I'm not going, or 안 갈 거야 라고 했어요. So let me say that again. You can do a quote directly of what someone said by simply attaching 이라고 or 라고 instead of using that verb's plain form. So you can make whatever sentence you want with any ending. It can be plain form. In this case, it's plain form, 아니다. But it could be like 아니에요, or 아니야, or 아닙니다, or 아니네, or whatever you want to say, and then just slap on 이라고 or 라고, and then you're quoting verb. And that makes it into a direct quote, in which case they're putting quotation marks to mark that it's a direct quote. So in this case, what the person actually said was 누구의 잘못도 아니다. In this case, they probably actually wrote it because they're using plain form. 누구의 잘못도 아니다 is exactly what they said. 라고 판단했어요. So they judged it is no one's mistake. Not they judged it to be no one's mistake. But then when you look at it, it says, we do not determine that anyone was at fault. No, that's not what they're saying. This is the actual quote that they're giving. So you can use quoting verbs. So you can use quoting forms either way. Most of the time, though, it's not going to be like this. Most of the time, you're simply going to say, someone said this, and you're kind of giving an indirect quote. But you could do it as like the exact quote that someone says. And you might do that like in a news article. You want to report exactly what someone said, not just kind of the summary of what they said, right? So hopefully that makes sense. But you could have also said 아니라고, just like normal. 이건 누구의 잘못도 아니다 라고 판단했어요. So they judged that it is no one's fault, basically. Okay, one more example. Oops, I don't have any more space. I'm gonna have to start a little higher because this one's harder. Actually, let's do 했어요 because match. 했어요. Okay. Last sentence. 조금 전에, a little while ago, 바다에서, from the ocean or in the ocean, 새롭다, to be new, 새로운, so a new as an adjective, 생명체, life form, 생명체, so a new life form, object, 발견하다, 발견하다 is to discover, 발견했다고, so that they discovered a new life form in the ocean a little while ago, 발표하다, to announce, 발표했어요. So they announced that they discovered a new form of life in the ocean just a little while ago. 조금 전에 바다에서 새로운 생명체를 발견했다고 발표했어요. So a little while ago, they announced that they discovered a new form of life in the ocean. Again, they announced that they discovered, 발견했다고. So that they discovered 새로운 생명체, a new form of life in the ocean, a little while ago. But the key to this sentence is really just this part. 발견했다고 발표했어요. They announced that they discovered. You could have said, like they announced that they didn't discover. 발견하지 못했다고 발표했어요. Or 발표하지 않았어요. They didn't announce that they discovered. 발견했다고 발표하지 않았어요. I don't know why you make a sentence. A little while ago, they didn't announce that they discovered a new form of life in the ocean. But you could make the sentence. It would be grammatically correct. People will be like, what? But it makes sense. It's perfect. Okay. I know that was a longer lesson than you probably expected because this form really has a lot of uses with many different verbs. But I wanted to just show you a few of the really common ways that you'll also see it. And keep in mind, it has that nuance of that, but it can be used with more than just things that you're saying. Okay, that is the lesson. I'm going to quickly take a thumbnail image. Something like that. I always do like the same thing, variations of that. There's also a worksheet. Make sure to get that. That has an additional like 10 sentences that I couldn't fit on the lesson. And then you can also download the outline for this on Patreon tonight. I'll put this up after the lesson's over so you can see all the sentences we used. In fact, there's even an additional sentence I didn't have time to do, and all the grammar that we reviewed and everything. So that's also on Patreon. That's just a benefit for my wonderful Patreon members. And then next live class Sunday will be a different time because of daylight savings time. So for me, it's the same time. If you're in Pacific time, it's the same. But for everyone else, I think it'll go later or earlier an hour. I think earlier an hour. We'll see how it is. But anyway, it's going to be an hour different, most likely. So now I'm going to hang out for about 20 minutes and answer any questions you might have, whether it's about the lesson or just about anything you want to know. Billy, do you have PayPal? I do. It should be billy@gobillykorean.com or gobillykorean@gmail.com. Either one. But if you do send anything to PayPal, let me know because I don't get the alerts through here, so I have to check my email. Hello, future me. Pay your internet bill, future me. 바보 아니다 라고 얘기했어요. Yes, that's good. Exactly. Billy was saying 바보 아니다. You might want to add in like, you are not a 바보, but 당신이 바보가 아니다 라고 이야기했어요. Very good sentence. Oh, And then for quoting, so I know this wasn't a lesson about quoting, but if you're going to say someone said something, the person who says it most of the time is going to be marked with the topic marker, like 빌리쌤은 당신이. So the subject inside of the quote most of the time will be the subject marker, 이 or 가. Now, it doesn't have to be this way because the topic and subject marker are more about nuance. You can have a sentence where it's like 빌리가 something something 은, but most of the time it'll be the other way because that's the standard way of saying someone said this is, like that. The only other times you would do different particles, or if you wanted to have different emphasis, like 빌리쌤도, like Billy also said this, or 빌리쌤은 this person 도, like this person is also, or this person isn't, or whatever you want to say. Do people ever break a tooth with metal chopsticks? No, because you're not supposed to be sticking them in your mouth completely. You use them to pick up food, but you're not chewing on them. So if you're tasting metal, you're using the chopsticks wrong. You're supposed to be holding the food and you put it up to your mouth and you bite it off, like you take it out, kind of. And if you're eating rice with it, you like kind of scoop it and drop it in your mouth, but you're not supposed to be biting down on it. So I would say no. Okay. Immersion, Tony likes weights says. Immersion, nice. Tony likes weights though. You mentioned your weight, but then you say Tony likes weights. So I can guess that's got to be some muscle in there too, right? Unless you just like looking at the weights and thinking about them. Maybe someday I'll lift these up. As you like eat the seventh cookie. Raw cookie dough. Oh my God. So I bought at the grocery store the other day. I probably shouldn't have bought this, but you know those 5-pound tubs of safe to eat raw cookie dough, the Pillsbury ones that you can bake. So it was on sale for $2. How could I not buy it? It's so good. Just like get a big spoon and just have a spoon of raw cookie dough that's not going to get you sick. Oh man, it's so good. But the problem is, so for lunch today, I baked 6 large cookies. So me and my wife and my kid can all have 2 each. And I'm thinking, okay, that's going to be, it's all like, maybe I used a third of it. It's like, there are 64 cookies that I can make in there. So I don't know what to do. That's a lot of cookies. I'm going to try not to eat all of them. I like lifting things up and down. I will risk salmonella for cookie dough every time. I heard something funny about that. Maybe not funny, but so you know how people say, oh, you shouldn't have raw eggs because they might have salmonella? I heard this, that actually they pretty much all do have salmonella. It's just small amounts that don't hurt you. Unless you have a lot of them, then they can. And sometimes you get unlucky and the egg has a lot in it. But I heard that they all do have a bit of salmonella in them, just that your body can process a little bit usually. Unless you're like at risk for that sort of thing and you should avoid that kind of food. I kind of agree. I think that my body is pretty okay with raw eggs. I've had raw eggs a lot, especially like Japanese food that has raw eggs on it. I don't want to jinx myself, but I've been eating them since I was like a young teenager. Never once got sick or felt stomach problems from eating raw eggs. It might be something like I've just gotten lucky, survivorship bias. It also could just be my stomach doesn't really care about that because I eat a lot of garbage that my body's like, salmonella, get in line. Like, I got to take care of all this other crap that Billy's eating. Give the cookies to Jeremy. He got 2 cookies too. He liked them. Okay, Korean Air flies nonstop to Mongolia. Oh, nice. Have I ever been? No, I've never been to Mongolia. That'd be really cool. Can you please teach us sloppy Korean? I try purposely to write nicely and to speak clearly. That's why sometimes I actually will most of the time, I purposely change my intonation when I'm reading a sentence, because if I say it the way that I would say it, it's not going to be clear to you as a learner. And I'll do that more for the beginner lessons. So if I say a sentence like, for example, 지구에 혼자 남았다고 상상해 보세요. This is not how I would say it. If you're wondering, that's very unnatural because I'm saying it slowly and I'm giving it emphasis to each word just to make it clear so you can hear the sounds I'm saying. but that's not how I would say it to someone. 지구 혼자 남았다고 상상해봐. 지구에 혼자 남았다고 상상해보세요 is probably how I would say it normally. I even have to think. I have to switch my brain into it for a second. 그럼 지구에 혼자 남았다고 상상해보세요. That's how I would say it. But when I teach it, I can't say it like that because it's not clear. So I'll have to do 지구에 혼자 남았다고 상상해보세요, even though that's not the natural intonation. So keep that in mind when you hear me reading a sentence slowly, that's not how you'll say it, but that's how you can hear all of the sounds in it clearly. I also saw another question. Noah says, a few lessons ago, you made a sentence that can go on for as long as you want with filler words. Can something be similar with 라고 to make a longer sentence that doesn't end? Yes, you just put a bunch of quotes inside of it. Another quote. 조금 전에 빌리가 한국어를 가르칠 수 있다고 했다고 말을 했다고 한 것 같다고 했다고 생각했다고, like thought that they said that they thought that they think that they had said that they thought, but it's immediately unnatural as soon as you stick the second one on. Grammatically you can do it, but it immediately sounds unnatural. Whereas the filler one, technically you could do it. They're just going to get really frustrated, but it's still natural. It's just like unnaturally natural. So yes, but no, you can't do it. Bake those cookies for us. Yes. Thought your video with Jeremy where he said the food is from Busan and you were like, how do you know that? He said YouTube. Yeah, because he watches YouTube Kids in Korean. So they have some shows that are on his, it's like kids mode, basically. But it doesn't have YouTube. He doesn't get YouTube Kids unrestricted because YouTube Kids will have some stuff that's not for kids sometimes by mistake. But it's like a curated version of YouTube Kids for Korean kids, if that makes sense. So that shows Korean, it shows free videos on YouTube, but it's curated without the ads. And you don't have to worry about him watching some random YouTube Kids video that's like Elsa getting pregnant with Spider-Man or something weird like that. It's just the stuff that's for Korean kids. And some of the shows they have on there are like science shows or like cooking shows and stuff like that. They're pretty fun, actually. And yeah, I guess one of them was talking about different types of tteok, so he learned that. Have I ever been to China? No. I'm not interested in traveling to China anymore. That dream faded when they did the whole thing with Hong Kong several years ago, right before COVID. If you remember all that thing. After that happened, I'm like, you know what? I don't want to go to China anymore. I don't want to go to Hong Kong anymore. Kind of faded away. But I mean, someday it would be cool too, but I don't have any plans. Raw eggs are safer in some countries than others. That's true. That's correct too. Are more Koreans traveling to Mongolia? I don't think so. I heard the younger Korean generations are being more relaxed with speaking and getting somewhat sloppy themselves. You can say the same thing about every generation though. So yes, you're correct, but no, this is not anything unique from before. If you listen to Koreans who speak 100 years ago and then compare that with 100 years before, you're going to think, oh, it's so much more sloppy and messy, right? But yeah, it's just a normal thing with language. Yes, the skibbity, all that stuff. I don't want my kid on that, at least not without supervision. If he wants to watch the skibbity toilet, Ohio Sigma, all that stuff, he can do that if I'm watching it with him, but I'm not going to let him get cursed on his own. Is that like 동화 Kids? No, it's actually what is it? Is it Kakao Kids? It might be Kakao Kids. If you search Kakao Kids, it should at least direct you to the correct one. It was either Yanadu Kids. I think it was Yanadu Kids before, and then it got rebranded. They bought, like Kakao bought it, so I think it's Kakao Kids. You have to pay a subscription to it though. You can't just sign up for it and get it for free. You have to pay for it. And I don't know if there's a way to pay for it if you don't have a Korean account, unless they might have added a way recently. But anyway, it's worth it though. It's like a couple bucks a month. And then he gets some Korean games and like Korean videos made specifically for the platform. And then it's their own version of like the YouTube Kids app with Korean stuff. So that's one of the things he does for his Korean practice. And I think it's great because it gets him real Korean practice that he actually wants to do. And that's the most important thing for language learning for kids, is that they are using it. And they're not gonna use it if the only thing you show them is like boring videos that they're not interested in. They're just gonna, they're gonna tune out. They're not gonna care. They're just gonna watch it and ignore what they're hearing. But because it's something he likes, he'll talk to us about, oh, did you hear? I learned this today, or I saw this, or they did this thing. I want to try it. Like it's a lot more interactive that way. Skibbity Billy Riz, Ohio. Yes. Although funnily enough, that's already like a dead meme. Like that's gone for like a year or two. I'm a month from Topic, aiming for 4. Okay. Any last minute tips? What are you right now? Then my tip will change depending on what's your current level. Oh, I meant sloppy writing Korean. Yes, sloppy writing Korean is, the funny thing about that is it's the exact same as writing nice. You just don't lift your pen as much. Sometimes you don't lift your pen at all. So I'm going to write one of the parts of the sentence. This is my regular speed. So it's not super nice. I ran out of space at the end. But if you're doing it really fast, that's what you get. And it's perfectly legible. I mean, I don't have the best. Oh, this one's actually messed up because too close to me there. This one is perfectly legible though. Like any Korean would be able to read what I was trying to write. But I'm doing the exact same hand movements. There's no like tricks. So like when I do namata, it's still na. It's still the same thing, but I'm not lifting my pen. So if you do the same thing, but you don't lift your pen. So here is, I'll do it again. Nam, like that, separate. But if you don't lift your pen and you put pressure on the parts where you're supposed to have it down, and you release pressure where you're not supposed to have it down, you get that, basically. I'm trying to do my best because, it's farther away from me. But you get something that kind of looks like this. Even though I did the exact same motion, you consciously push down in the places you know it's supposed to be, and then you let go where it's not supposed to be. But because it's slower to let go, you actually keep it on the page. You just release your pressure a little bit. So you end up with, and you can even get it more severe than that. Like if I just completely connect it, you get that, which doesn't look good. If you completely connect it without lifting your hand at all, it looks really messy. But if you release a little bit, it becomes legible again. And it'll still be perfectly legible, but really fast. So you get the benefits of speed, but without having to make it look like absolute garbage if you actually don't lift your pen at all. Like, how would you read that that's numb? It just looks really messy like that. But again, relax. And then actually, I probably should have relaxed here as well to separate it. But it gets legible. So that just takes practice writing it quickly. So basically, how do you get faster at writing quickly, Billy? Well, kids, you write quickly. Subscribe for more tips. But yeah, the secret is you learn stroke order, you master stroke order, and then you get faster and faster at writing correctly with stroke order. Because when you get faster at writing with stroke order correctly, you're automatically at the same time getting faster at writing messily, like quick, faster, because you're doing the exact same motion. Susur is the nice way to write it. But if I do the same thing, sorry, actually, let me go in front of it so I can do a little more natural. That's sur. Let me try again. So like you can do it like messier. So that's not even messy enough. Yeah, more like that. Like you can do the same motion, but it's fast. You just do it faster. Let me try to think of so like it's not that. Here you can see I did the exact same thing. This, but then if you do it really quick, you get the chia. It looks kind of like that. And then if you stretch it into here, you get that. So you put them together and you get that. And then normally like that, but if you do it as one stroke, you get that. And if you loosen it up a bit, loosen it up a bit so you have a space between that one, then you get like that. So there's nothing special. I'm not doing any other, I'm not doing a different stroke order or anything special. It's the exact same thing, just faster. And if you follow the stroke order, it'll be legible, which is what you want. If, however, let's say I didn't. I'm just going to write the word I just did. So this is the regular word. Let's say I don't follow the stroke order. Oh wait, let me not make it bad. I just won't follow the stroke order, but I'm going to still kind of do it in the way that I can. So you can write it. I wrote it kind of a little bit weird, but I purposely didn't follow the stroke order. Fine. If I write it slowly, no one's really going to know. They're going to think it looks a little odd, but they're not going to know that I didn't follow the stroke order. But when I write it quickly, they're going to know. Like, what is that? They'll probably still be able to read it's like tool, but even if I erase this looks really weird now. Like, it looks, something's wrong about it because I didn't follow the stroke order. So you start seeing things like, why is this going down here? Why is this one going back around this way? And why is this one not have a flick? Why does this not have any flick at the end here? Like, it'll just start to look a little bit unnatural if you're not following the stroke order. Like here, if we write it out of order, you can write, and you can get it. It's legible. I wrote it completely out of order. But if you then do that with the regular word, like, something looks wrong about it. Something looks really wrong about having the strokes get thinner at the left side and having this kind of looks like, why is it curving up at the top there? Anyway, it just starts looking really messy. And if I were to write it with connecting it, like, no one would read that if I connected it. This is wrong, but if I were to connect that, like, without lifting my pen, no one could read this. But if I did it messy way, connecting the regular way, everyone would read that. Even though this is also horrible, and like I said, you're supposed to kind of let up a little bit for each letter. But let's say I didn't. I just smashed my pen on the ground, on the board, and kept going. This is still legible. This is not. So that's why the stroke order is so important. And one of the reasons, actually the reason why I push stroke order before you can even read the language at all. Because it's not that you need to master it as a beginner, but you need to be aware of it as soon as possible. It'll come in handy. Oh, if I need to use two particles after a noun, so the topic, subject, and object marker will always go at the end. If that helps. To and man will also go at the end. And then that should pretty much cover most of your cases. I gave you pizza. Chica Baduk says my handwriting sucks. That's fine. It's not a problem. And if you are following the stroke order, then it does not. It's probably fine. The problem with my Korean handwriting is all letters are out of proportion. So there's a trick for that. I actually teach this in my beginner course. So this is a very beginner topic. Let's see. There's a couple more. There are two more. Why can't they? Anyway, the syllable blocks. There are two more I'm not thinking of right now. Syllable blocks are how you combine like consonant and vowel, consonant, vowel, consonant, vowel, consonant, 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 vowel, consonant. The possible ways that you can organize syllables in Korean. Hold on, let me get the other, because I know I'm missing one here. Alphabet. Here we go. The Korean alphabet. Oh yes, that's right, of course. I was forgetting the ones with 3. Consonant, and then also for similar to that. Okay, so these are the 6 possible ways All of these are on my cheat sheet. If you can get my Korean alphabet cheat sheet, it's 100% free on my Patreon page. You don't even have to sign up for the paid membership. You just join for free. These are at the bottom of there. There are 6 of them. These are all the possible ways you can organize letters in Korean to make syllables. Now, consonant could be a double consonant, but basically you can have a consonant here and the vowel on the right. You might have seen these before. This is the key to writing letters that don't look out of proportion, because this is not like, it's not just for how you can write them, but this is how to write them so that they look proportional. So let's say you have something that's 3 letters. So it's going to be one of these if you have 3 letters, and the letter is a vertical vowel. Well, then it has to be this one. If it was a horizontal vowel, it would have to be this one. So we're going to do this one. So CVC. So I'm going to write the word kang, which just means like a river. So here we have our little box. It's 3. Kang. Like that. If you write in this order, in these shape, then if you take it out of the box, you're going to have a natural balanced looking letter that's not too big. But if you don't learn how the box works, you might end up with stuff that looks like this, right? But that's impossible, right? Because the syllable block, it would have to be cut off here. It cannot go below there, at least not in typical, like the standard type of writing. There are situations where you can stretch it, like you can stretch and squish these boxes. So you can say, like, you can do it like this. If you want to get like technical, and then you can have a character which looks like this, right? Which is stretched. That's okay, but it still should be in those proportions where you have whatever consonant vowel combination you have, they're going to fit together in this structure. So as long as you're following this structure, and there are 6 of them, it's going to look proportional. But if you've never learned these before, then you can have stuff, all over the place. So I would give these like a refresh, like just, go over them again. And anytime if you think a syllable looks really weird, check the syllable block and see if it possibly would fit in any of them. And you'll immediately know why it looks messed up. It's because of that. Now, if you want to get really technical, there are ways around that you can do creative stuff in here. I'll give you a really quick example, because if you already know this and you want another tip on top of that, and especially if you've ever seen like Korean cursive or like fancy writing before, you might be thinking, but Billy, sometimes I'll see things that doesn't look like that. It's okay. So let's do something really simple. Cool. So cool for like Billy Go, right? Cool. So if you take it out of here, you get something that looks like this, right? It's okay, it's blocky, but you might see Koreans write like this. So how does that work? Well, again, you can do this stuff with the block. So what basically they're doing is they might be writing their horizontal vowels stretched out that way and their vertical vowels stretched out that way. So you're left with something that's like cool or ka, like that. And you might think, oh, that looks really nice. Some people stretch them. It's kind of like a poetic thing, like not poetic, like a cursive style, where you stretch the vertical ones a little bit. This is a bit exaggerated just to show you. You'll stretch them a little bit, and the horizontal ones you'll squish just a little bit to make them look kind of like nice. But at the end of the day, they're still following this structure. And that's why they can look balanced, even when they're stretched a little bit, because they're still fitting into this form. And there's one more thing you can do. So these boxes are not 100% rules. They're a guide. And once you know the guide, the way that the guide works, actually, let me do it with the other one because I think let's see. So you might see something like this. So it would be like that, right? But you don't have to write these like as blocks. You don't have to write block versions of text for whatever, you can do a different font. So what if your font is like that or like that? You can do whatever, any font you want can go in here. You can have a font where it's like the K's all look like that. That's fine. Although if you do this, you can quickly see, wait a minute, but it's up here. It kind of looks weird, right? You might want to draw it in the center, kind of keep things centered, at least. As long as it looks nice in your block, it's going to look nice when you take it out of the block. And Koreans aren't thinking of these blocks in their head. this is something that you can use for learning Korean. Koreans just know because they've seen so much writing and they practice writing it on tests in blocks like this, but not these types of blocks with the lines. But Koreans are very used to writing practice stuff inside of blocks because that's how you'd write essays on tests. That's how you'll write like practice when you're learning the language. So you can use different fonts, but it's still going to be in those 6 block arrangements. So again, to summarize, learn stroke order, master stroke order, learn the blocks, master the blocks, and then just do it faster. And now you have native level cursive. I think my writing is horrible in English and in Korean. Just my writing is not very nice. It's not pretty. But if a Korean sees my writing, it looks the same as another Korean's writing because I'm doing the same stroke order they are. So if they saw my writing, and it would just look like a regular Korean writing because, like I said, I'm not doing anything differently than they're doing. Is my mic popping? I didn't know. Sorry. I don't think I was doing anything, but it's possible. Could be. The static is his allure. It's part of my brand. Go 잡음. High static. My problem is more like writing iang part here too small or too big and the size of the blocks is not saying constant. That's what you want to practice. So if you know the blocks and now you want to figure out how can I write nicer, buy graph paper. In fact, here, hold on one sec. I got something for you. I got something for everyone. Where is that? It's Hunta one. Here, okay, here. So last year I released, I think it was last year, 13 study notebook pages. I designed them myself. You can't see it too well because I made it thin. That way it doesn't waste too much ink. But there are boxes that are also divided into the possible forms for, it's actually not all the syllable blocks. It's just the main 4, but they are already big grids. So you can practice writing Korean. So I already practiced here. 안녕하세요, just as an example that I wrote in pen on this paper. But there's a Hangul one. There's also a couple for Hanja. There are some for sentences. There are vocabulary ones. There's a time tracker. There's a grammar study sheet. There are a lot of different study sheets. These are free, and there are 13 different ones. This is just the one for Hangul. I don't think most people will need this, though, because unless you have like really messy handwriting, you probably can just get better by practicing on regular paper. But if you really want to work on it, this is a large grid paper you can download for free. It prints black and white or in color. While you're there, you can also get any of the other 13 types of reviews. There's like a one for sentence analysis. Here's like one for Hanja. There's a time tracker for you can check for what you're doing. There's a general use one for studying, like, grammar forms, vocabulary. There's like a little quiz feature on there. Anyway, yeah, these are all free. There are 13 of them on my Patreon. At the same time you get that, you can also get all my cheat sheets. There are 12 cheat sheets. There's one for the alphabet also. Here, this one's for the Korean alphabet. It has all the letters, all the stroke order, all the notes for how to pronounce it, pronunciation tips, all the syllable blocks with examples. Yeah, everything. The Korean names of the letters, the different pronunciation of all the diphthongs, the names of all the diphthongs. Yeah, you get the idea. Everything's there. It's also free, along with the other 12. So, and more to come. I'm actually working on some more right now. More cheat sheets I have, which I'm pretty excited to get those out. Those won't be ready until probably like May because I still have a lot more work to do. You're working on a binder of them right now. Oh, nice. Bits. If you have some done, send me a picture on Discord if you can. I just want to check it out. Yeah, I worked on them also together with some of my members. So I had some people test them out and made a few changes as well based on feedback. But yeah, basically the idea is you print just the ones you want. They use low amounts of ink. So it's not like, you know, you have to print out these giant color sheets. They can print in color or black and white, and they work on low quality and high quality. So I tested the like line thickness to make sure that they'll be visible even if you don't have a good printer. And they work on laser printer or inkjet. There are ones for super brand new beginner all the way up to advanced. So there are like everything from like the practicing the alphabet to practicing hanja. And anyway, you just pick and choose which ones you want and make a study notebook kind of like that. And there's very minimal branding on it, so I didn't want it to be distracting. So it's like very at the bottom, you can see it says Go Billy Korean, but that's it. Is there an alphabetical order? Yes, there is. There, that's the alphabetical order. It's very easy because they actually have an alphabet song in Korean. Kanadara, Kanadara, Mabasa, Ajatakatapaha is the song that they use. So yeah, alphabetical order. And then in there will be the double consonants and stuff like that in between for there. But yeah, so that's all the alphabetical order of everything in the alphabet. They also all have names. They are in the alphabetical order on the cheat sheet also. Like there. There you go. And then the double ones as well. Yeah, and as well as all their names, how to pronounce them. I also marked which ones have unique names so you can quickly see. You don't have to like read all of them to find it. But you only need the alphabetical order when you're looking in like a paper dictionary or a grammar reference. I've never needed this order outside of that. But I do use it a lot because I specifically have paper dictionaries and paper grammar references that use this order. But other than that, like I said, glossaries in the back of a book will do it. But other than that, you don't really need this order. Although if you will use hanja for studying, hanja books will have an alphabetized list at the end where you'll need this as well. I've got the sound change rule stuck on my wall in the front of the desk. Nice. Yeah, I also really like the sound change cheat sheet. I wish if I could travel back in time to when I first started studying Korean, that's if I could only give myself one piece of paper, it would be that. It would be the sound change rule cheat sheet. Where is that one? Yeah, here. It's because every single sound change rule fits on one piece of paper, including the advanced sound change rules, which are ones you won't learn from regular books because they're not as consistent, or like the really specific ones, they're all on there. So I like this one. It's like, I wish I had this one when I was a beginner. It's the culmination of all my work into one piece of paper because I made a lot of videos about sound change rules over the years. I've been learning 이, 그, 저, and I wanted to say 이것 빵을 먹고 싶어요. Oh, so if you're saying I want to eat this bread, this something, this person, this idea, this is always 이. 이것 is actually a separate word. It means this. 것 is a thing. So 이것 means this thing. So if you say this thing is bread, 이것은 빵이에요. Yes, but you can't say 이것 빵 because that means this thing, bread, I want to eat is what it sounds like. They'll understand what you meant to say, but you would only use 이 or 그 or 저 by itself if you wanted to say this, that, or that for the adjective. So like this, that thing, like that. And again, 이것, 그것, 저것 is this thing, that thing, or that thing over there. Have you considered making Japanese books? No. I won't pretend to know enough Japanese to teach it. Now, if I were like personally hanging out with someone and they were like, hey, Billy, I have a question about Japanese. Can you help me? Oh, yeah, of course. But that's different than me trying to make like lessons about it. And then more than that, it's not that I just want to make lessons for you guys. I want to be like someone that you could kind of come back to if you ever get stuck. And I wouldn't be able to do that for Japanese because all it would take is someone to be like, hey, Billy, I have a question. When do I use this word or this word in Japanese? And I'd be like, I legitimately don't know. And what help would that be? So I feel like I would need to have a much higher level. If I went back to Japanese, say for 5 years, right? And I did like full immersion and studying. I am pretty sure I can get to a good level if I were to really study hard for 5 years without living in Japan. But I would have to then give up Korean for those 5 years. So probably not. Like I said, I only know enough Japanese to know that you shouldn't compare it with Korean. And I know enough Korean to really know you shouldn't compare it with Japanese. But I have been asked sometimes about, like, oh, when are you going to start Go Billy Japanese? The answer is never. Just because of that, I'm even like stressed day to day from this channel as it is, just knowing that I have to keep my Korean up to date and keep updating stuff and making new lessons and stuff, because I want to make sure that I'm kind of like a reliable, hand to hold. And just that alone takes up most of my mental process. So I don't think I'd be able to add on a second language to that. How do I know which adverbs I can use on their own? Can you give me an example? I mean, you can use any adverb by itself, any adverb, and just stick yo to the end, right? Like, hey, how quickly should I go? 빨리요. There you go. I'm not sure if that's your question, though. What are some apps you would recommend? Personally, just the dictionary, Naver Dictionary. It's not really like an app, though. It's just like it's just a program that opens up like a web version of their dictionary anyway, with a couple extra features. I don't really know. Anki, if you have Android device, it's free. I think they charge a lot of money on Apple, because Apple charges developers tons of fees for that. I'd get that. If you're in Korea, I could recommend apps for like getting around Korea or doing things in Korea. But for learning Korean, no, there aren't any that I know of right now. Like besides that. What about Go Billy Old Latin? Yes. That would be very, very challenging to me. Is there a known order for complex vowels? That would just be you're talking about the diphthongs. Yeah, I have all the order and everything on the cheat sheet. So if you're ever curious about that, get the cheat sheet for the alphabet. It has all that too. The vowel order and the diphthong order. But you don't need to know that, really. Like I said, unless you are really searching in like a giant dictionary and trying to find one word out of like 1,000, then yeah, you want to look at the vowel order. But usually just the letter order is enough for that. But yeah, the vowel order and the diphthong order are also here on the same cheat sheet. So I said, I spent a lot of time on that cheat sheet. What it is versus what is it? Oh, I see, you're answering something else. I would love a Billy Go French. No. C'est pas possible. C'est pas possible. I can barely even pronounce possible. Are they free? Yes, they are free. Although if you can pay, I really appreciate it. But they are free because not everyone has access to money. I found out like a lot of the people who watch my videos are not even from like the US or, European countries. A lot of them are like from India or a lot of people in the Philippines. I even used to have a few North Korean viewers, though they stopped reporting that statistic, so I can't see now. But I remember checking like maybe 10 years ago. I still have a screenshot of it where I could see North Korean viewers, not a VPN, because you're not going to use a VPN in North Korea if you're not in North Korea, but people actually watching in North Korea, watching some of my videos. But yeah, they are completely free because I know not everyone has access to something called money, and they'll always be free. So I'm not going to charge for them in the future. There are benefits if you do pay, like the paid members get to access higher, like giant quality versions of them that you can then print on a poster, but the free one's fine for a sheet of paper. I printed all of these on the free one. Yeah, I know. I think it was Kim Jong-un was trying to brush up on his South Korean, so he would watch some of my videos. It's one of the reasons why I'm never going to North Korea unless they open up. like officially, because I don't think I would be safe. I think other people would probably be safe. I would not be safe. Tony maybe says, not with these RAM prices. Yeah, tell me about it. I'm still using my computer from 10 years ago and my other computer from 14 years ago that I built at the end of 2012. Originally when my laptop died. Because when I first started my YouTube channel in 2012, I quickly filmed 3 videos at once, but then I'm like, hey, people like it. I should film some more. So I went and filmed like 5 or 6 more after that. And I had them all on my computer, on my laptop. And before I could edit them, my laptop died. It wouldn't turn on. So I was like panicking. I'm like, if I lose these videos, like I'm just quitting YouTube. This was such a pain to do. It might have even been more. It might have been 8 videos. It was a lot. But I was like, if I lose these videos, I'm just not going to do YouTube because it's too much work that'd be lost. But fortunately, the hard drive in the laptop was okay. So I was able to get the files off. But that time I also built a new computer. I still have that computer from 2012. I use that as my regular, Chrome, YouTube. If I'm just relaxing or whatever, not working, I'll use that one. But my upstairs computer right here that I have in my office is the one I built in 2016. And at the time I built it, it wasn't the top of the line, but it was like a good mid-tier. And I think I paid $1,300 just for the tower part. And it was like really good. It's a 1060 GPU, a 32 gigabytes of RAM, like 2 terabyte hard drive. I can't even dream of that today. But yeah, anyway, it was a pretty good mid-tier at the time. But now it's 10 years old. And when I built this computer, I was only editing HD video, maybe like 1 track. And now I'm doing 4K. I've, filmed with 3 cameras at a time, 32-bit audio, all this stuff going on, rendering, giant videos. So it's like not sufficient, but I can't upgrade my computer. I was going to upgrade in January. I was waiting until January specifically to upgrade. And now I can't. So I waited too long. Hey, Little Fox. Thank you. Little Fox 007. Oh, let me erase this. I should stop the live stream, but let me just answer Little Fox's question because I have to edit this video from today. Do you have a list or guide mapping out your recommended learning profession? Yes, I do. For beginners, my beginner course. Let me share that. If you don't want to follow that beginner course, it's fine. Just skip through the videos one at a time and see what the forms taught are. Like watch them at like 4 times speed or just skip through to see the forms I teach. That you can learn them on your own. Just learn that order is an okay order. I wrote the whole order for the course before I made one video. So you can trust it's a good order. It'll get you from A to Z. Is there any linguistic differences in North Korean? A ton. But a lot of it just comes from the fact that they split in the 30s. So you're going to get just differences from that sort of time frame. But like they're still the same language, but they use different intonation. They'll use some different grammar forms. They'll use some different words, expressions. But they're still mutually intelligible. You can still talk with someone from North Korean if you're South Korean or vice versa. The only thing they miss out on is a lot of the Konglish words are different. In North Korea, they'll use a lot of Konglish words from Russia and Chinese. And in South Korean, they use Konglish words from English a lot. Other than that, it's the same thing. But so you can still understand them, but you'll be like, what's that word? Oh, I see. That sort of thing. But it's not like, more pure or anything like that. It's the same language. Paying members get to live with Billy. That's true. Yeah. All the paying members are actually, hey guys. Yeah. I'm talking about you. There are like 100 or so paying members, which are trapped. Living on their own free will right here in my room. And if you join, you can also, come stay here. I've got a little box. It's at least a couple feet for a few people. And come live here in my room. Yes, in the basement. Difference between 정말 and 진짜. Yeah, 진짜 is informal usage only. You'll hear 진짜 more in casual conversation. It itself is not casual, but it cannot be formal. 정말 could be formal. It just means really, truly. Whereas 진짜 is like, man, for real, reals, legit, really. Also, there's another difference. 진짜 can be used to mean legitimate, as in real, like authentic, and in which case it is not a informal word at all. It's also formal. It can be formal. So if you say 진짜 가방이에요, like it's a real, authentic bag, but you couldn't say 정말 가방이에요. That would have a different meaning. That means like it really is a bag. But if you want to say legitimate or authentic, you have to use 진짜, in which case it's fine. It's same politeness as 정말. If you want to know which should I use for conversation, use either one. Speaking of basements, the Alamo doesn't have a basement. I showed my kid one of my favorite movies, Pee-wee's Big Adventure, last week. He really liked it, so I was proud as a parent. That time I get to show him a movie that I liked, and he liked it too. Okay, anyway, thank you everyone for coming. I should probably stop here or else I'm never going to finish editing this video tonight, which is going to take, I swear it's going to be like 3 hours before I get this edited. I don't even know if I can go to bed before 8 o'clock tonight. Thank you everyone for coming. And I will see you again next time. Remember that next week will also be an hour earlier due to daylight savings time. Yes, Pee-wee. Anyway, take care. 그럼 다음에 또 봐.